Aita to divorce my husband and leave him with the kid after finding out I'm not biologically the mom. I can't believe my life has come to this. All I ever do is go out of my way to help others, but on the few occasions I need help, nobody ever comes through for me. I, 36F, have been with my husband, 35M, for a total of almost 10 years, married for 7. We had what I thought was my child by surrogate over 2 years ago because after 4 years of trying to conceive with no success despite medical interventions, it turns out I am unable to carry a child to term. I had always wanted to be a mom. Devastated is an understatement regarding how I felt when I found out I have a medical condition that would make it nearly impossible to carry a baby to term. It was even more upsetting when I had to get a major surgery to remove uterine growths with the hope to increase fertility, and complications during surgery warranted a partial hysterectomy involving removal of my uterus only. I still had my ovaries, so we started looking into cost of a surrogate. It is really expensive. My close friend since college who'd already had 2 kids of her own offered to serve as the surrogate for us to cut down on costs. After 2 disappointing IVF sessions that did not result in pregnancy, she became pregnant on the 3rd try and carried a boy to term for us. I was so happy and busy after the birth, between being a mom and returning to work after a 4-week parental leave, so I didn't notice any warning signs. I should have noticed the red flags and warning signs early on but did not because I was so exhausted from working so much at my stressful job and 2 part-time jobs to cover most of the bills and anticipated medical and legal costs associated with this friend becoming our surrogate. I was the primary breadwinner. My friend and my husband started talking more, and I would sometimes come home from my weekend job to find her already hanging out at our house when my husband was there. I chalked it up as innocuous, and it's good for her to know my husband better since she was in the process of hopefully carrying our child for us. I was grateful to have someone helping us have a child. I also thought it weird that our son has brown eyes when both of us have blue. Then I found out that while this is uncommon, it's possible sometimes due to many genes controlling eye color. Recently it all came to a head when I took our son to a doctor's appointment and they did metabolic panel and blood tests which showed that he had a blood type that is not biologically possible to have with me as his mother. He's B+, I'm A+, and husband is O+. Immediately I started worrying it was the fertility clinic's fault and that they'd messed up and implanted a wrong embryo. I started lining up lawyer consultations to possibly sue the clinic and looked into having a DNA parentage test done. The test results showed that I'm not the mother but my husband still is the father. I was heartbroken and angrier than ever, talked to lawyers about medical malpractice in the fertility clinic we'd used. Then my husband confessed that he'd slept with my friend, our surrogate, on a few different occasions during our struggle to have her get pregnant with our embryos. This means what I thought was our son conceived by IVF and carried with a surrogate, isn't my son at all and was in fact conceived the old-fashioned way, which I can't ever do. Livid and absolutely broken at the same time doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I have been breaking down into crying spells over and over again about this. He claims he didn't ever think pregnancy could result because he pulled out and he had always assumed that he was the reason for our earlier struggles to conceive, both before my hysterectomy and during the IVF insemination process with this friend. I felt an immediate triple betrayal, from what was supposed to be my husband, my friend, and now knowing my child isn't even really mine. I had such white-hot rage and delirium, I immediately left home and stayed at a hotel for almost a week before asking my parents to let me stay at home for a while. I admit I left our son with him. I am now filing divorce because he cheated and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have also cut off my friendship with my friend, the surrogate, and feel afraid to trust anyone else now. I have seen a divorce lawyer to see about giving up my legal rights to this kid so I don't have to face such betrayal or owe child support. My husband and friend surrogate admit they were wrong and keep apologizing but also called me immature and heartless to just give up on my son like that. My parents also say I can't just give up on a kid that I went through so many legal and medical hoops to have. When I told them I refused to stay in a cheater marriage and I'd rather adopt someday with a better, more trustworthy partner, they also told me I was wrong and that maintaining my parental rights isn't much different than if I adopted outright. They said it isn't blood that makes a family. They are all about me divorcing my cheater husband but keep telling me I'm making a mistake giving up my parental rights. Some of my other friends agree with what I'm doing, a few admitted they weren't big enough to swallow pride and care for an affair baby or to see daily reminders of my friend surrogate's betrayal every time look at her son. I just want a clean break and a fresh start. I'm also looking at relocating several states away. Aita to give up my parental rights in the divorce because a kid I paid a lot of money to have born by surrogacy isn't biologically mine at all, but the surrogates. TLDR, I recently found out that a son that my husband and I had born to a surrogate, since I'm infertile, is biologically my husband's kid but not mine. My husband confessed that he slept with my friend, who served as surrogate, during the long IVF process, so the kid is actually conceived of an affair between my husband and friend surrogate. I am filing for divorce and looking to give up my parental rights so I can move away and get a clean break from the whole situation without having to owe child support for a kid that's not mine. Some friends agree with my plan, but my husband and parents think I'm in the wrong to just cut off a kid I raised for 2 years. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, no, you're NTA. You've suffered a terrible betrayal. Only you can say what's best for you. Personally, I wouldn't be able to look at the child without being hit with the betrayal again and again. Your parents and friends don't have to actually deal with the situation. They don't get a vote. Your soon-to-be ex is a real piece of work. You're immature. I would want to throw up if I was in the same room with him. Please get some therapy to work through this. Don't let these $2 holes hold you back from living your best life. Reply, he feels like biological maternity shouldn't matter that much when it means I am finally fulfilling my dream of becoming a mother. He says that if I adopt someday, I am still going to have to raise a child that is not biologically mine. He has reminded me about what a depressive wreck I was during the infertility, the aftermath of my partial hysterectomy, and how I put him through the ringer because I was obsessed with wanting to have a child. He claims that I pushed him away with my baby obsession and he couldn't deal with me anymore, and that's why he started spraying the way he did. He also says that I can't just turn my back on a child when I legally signed all the paperwork, which is similar to adoption paperwork since the state doesn't readily recognize a child born to a surrogate to be the couple's child since they base it on the person who gave birth to the child as being the legal mother until paperwork is signed that transfers the rights over. He also claimed that I am going to have a difficult battle ahead of me trying to reverse that. OOP should ask her husband and the surrogate to reimburse for the costs of IVF. Reply, I tried. And failed. The doctor and clinic I complained to said the IVF costs were associated with the formation and storage of embryos, and the procedures associated with the insemination, not the outcome. OOP responds on her ovaries' eggs being intact or not. Reply, obviously I have eggs if my ovaries are intact and they extracted eggs to form the embryos prior to inseminating. There's still eggs remaining there. OOP explains the process of the fertility clinic being involved. Reply, the fertility clinic was just involved in the egg extraction, embryo formation, and storage of eggs and embryos. Another medical practice utilized the in vitro fertilization methods with the person I thought would be our surrogate. He did not pick the surrogate for us, it was a personal friend who agreed to do this out of the supposedly kindness of her heart since she already had 2 prior children and knew that she could carry to term easily and didn't mind being pregnant. Had we gone through a professional surrogacy practice, there would have been other steps involved and they would have found a few options for surrogates for us, but the costs were way too high, which is why we skipped some steps and a lot of money by going through a friend that we thought we could trust. Now I feel like I can trust no one. I don't even feel like I could try surrogacy again far in the future because my trust in that is broken. Commenter 2, NTA. One of the things that gets me is that you were working extra jobs to pay for the surrogacy, which I am assuming included her medical bills and financially supporting her. I would speak to a solicitor about suing her for your money back. She knew that if she was having sex then there was always a chance that the child was biologically hers. Reply, most of the cost was for the egg retrieval, embryos formation and storage, and especially the IVF procedures which weren't eligible for insurance cover through her health insurance. OOP on the surrogate's family. Reply, she doesn't have a husband. She had 2 kids with a long-term boyfriend but they split 5 years or so ago. She's not married. She was with her ex for a long time and had 2 kids with him but didn't marry. They broke up around 5 or 6 years ago. Did the surrogate sign legal papers regarding the parental rights? Reply, the only paperwork that was legally drafted was for her transferring over the parental rights to us, much like an adoption in the event that there is already a mutual off-the-books agreement to adopt from someone already personally known. We were trying to do it as cheap as possible because we don't make much money and the costs that couldn't be avoided were sky high enough to the point I took out loans from the bank and then picked up 2 part-time jobs on the side to pay toward these loans. Update. I'm low on time right now but will be posting a separate update post later. I'm not staying and I'm not caring for him anymore. I was not even offered a choice in the matter at all, which is why I've kept telling myself I shouldn't want to compare myself to men in a similar type of parentage situation, and have kept myself aloof toward the boy I thought was mine. I have no legal rights anymore no matter what because SHE fought to get her son back. I'm actually a lot more upset about losing this child than I presented in my post, and I'm realizing more and more with each passing day. The choice wasn't mine and I lost. I posted that I wouldn't want to be the sucker raising someone else's kid as more of a cope than anything. She got to have her kid, he left me, and I'm stuck with nothing. Relevant comments. OOP explains about being the legal guardian in the question after the maternal tests confirmed her not to be the biological mother. Reply, And yes, that is exactly what I've been going through all these months. I have little to no rights. I'm stuck coping with major loss. My best chance at still being this boy's guardian is to stay with that awful scrub of a guy, hope he lets me stay, and agreeing to let that slore of a friend have 50-50 and be the chump who still pays most of the bills for that unmotivated scrub SOB in the meantime while he continues to cheat. It also came out that she wasn't his only affair either. He's been cheating all along for most of the time that we've been trying without success to get pregnant. So for anyone who acts like I'm selfish, I make their blood boil, they can go fuck themselves because they don't know me like that and I don't have any real choice in the matter. Stories number 2. Aita for refusing to help my dad's ex-wife with rent after his passing, even though she is struggling and my half-brother is still a minor. So here's the situation. My dad passed away 3.5 years ago when my half-brother was 11 years old. My dad and his ex-wife had been separated for about 5 years before his death, but they weren't legally divorced. During that time, they didn't really have much contact, and she didn't join any family gatherings or events. Even during the funeral, she wasn't there where my aunt, my grandma, and I, 32F, were, and I didn't have a close relationship with her. My dad was also struggling financially and he didn't left anything behind apart from a small boat he had purchased in my name, which I sold and put the money aside for my brother's future and started paying towards his needs such as education fees and monthly allowances for him. My dad had still been supporting my half-brother's mom financially, even though they weren't living together, and I only had to communicate with her a few times after his passing about my brother's expenses. Here's where things get tricky. My aunt has been paying the rent for my dad's ex-wife and my half-brother for the past 3.5 years, as my dad's ex-wife claims to be struggling financially. She works full-time but also receives a pension through my dad. Now, the landlord wants them to move out, and my aunt, who has been helping with rent all this time, is not in a position to pay for the rent in the future apartment. My dad's ex-wife is now asking me for help with rent, claiming she's still struggling. I'm honestly conflicted. I don't have a strong relationship with her, and I don't feel it's my responsibility to help her out with rent, especially when I'm already helping my brother. I've made it clear that I can't help with the rent, but she's persistent and threatening me to tell my brother that I'm this bad sister who is not helping him out with their housing situation, and she told me if I'm not helping her out with rent, I shouldn't act like a good sister and help out on anything else as well. I feel like it's not fair that I should take on this burden when I'm already looking out for my brother's well-being, and especially when my aunt has already been helping her all this time. My primary focus is on my brother's future, and I just don't want to take on any more responsibilities that aren't my own. I also want to mention that while my dad financially supported my dad's ex-wife when they were separated, their relationship was strained, and I never felt close to her. I'm struggling with whether I'm being unreasonable for not helping her, even though she's in a tough situation. So, Aita for not wanting to help her out with rent, even though she's claiming that she is struggling. Update. Thank you, everyone, for supporting my decision. I'm overwhelmed by the support I've received. I just want to provide a bit more context about the countries involved without going into too much detail. I'm originally from a Middle Eastern country and moved to Europe a couple of years ago to work under better conditions. My brother and his mom still live in my home country. Things have been tough there, just like everywhere else, and she is not the only one struggling. In our culture, families help each other out. However, even though my family loves my brother and has done everything to support him, we feel like she is using us at this point, and I don't want to give in to her manipulation. My mom was a single parent who worked 2 jobs to provide me with housing and all my needs until I was able to provide for myself, so her attitude is really frustrating me even more. As some of you suggested, I don't want to help her with budget planning or finding a new apartment because I'm afraid that if I help her even a little, she'll keep asking for more. I also think she wants to maintain an expensive lifestyle. She isn't into drugs or gambling, as far as I know, but she does spend a lot on luxury cosmetics, branded clothes, and even some Botox and similar treatments. Regarding taking my brother to live with me, it would be very complicated due to visa processes, but if things get worse, I will do everything in my power to arrange that. I told her that life is tough for everyone, I'm in no position to pay rent, and I'm not going to send her any money from my brother's account for her rent because he will need it more in the future. It is her responsibility to find somewhere to live within her budget. I also told her I don't want her to contact me ever again about anything related to this topic, as I don't believe it is my responsibility to help her. She was shameless enough to say that she didn't want the full rent, just my share that I had to support for my brother's sake. I will send my brother a text message in a couple of days, letting him know that I love him, I'm always there for him, and he can reach out to me personally whenever he wants. I'm also considering giving him a debit card. She has until the end of this month to leave the current apartment, and I'm waiting to see how things will unfold. Update. Over the weekend, I realized I was blocked on socials by the ex-wife and also my brother removed me as well. I reached out to my brother directly because I wanted to make sure he knew that none of this was his fault and that I will always be there for him. I didn't want to say anything that could damage his relationship with his mom, but I needed him to know that I did nothing against him and that he can always reach out to me. To my relief, he responded right away and reassured me that he has no hard feelings toward me at all. He already knew that a lot of what his mom told him wasn't true and even said he was actually happy about the decision I made. He told me that if he were in my position, he would have done the same thing. One of the most upsetting parts of our conversation was when he admitted that he never liked asking me for money through his mom because it made him feel like a beggar, but she insisted on it. He also told me that she had been looking for an apartment way beyond her budget and had been trying to collect money from different people to afford it, which confirmed my suspicions. I also learned that now they found an apartment within whatever budget she has. What really broke my heart was when he said he needed to delete our messages because his mom sometimes checks his phone, and if she found out we talked, she would be very upset with him. It made me realize just how much control she has over him. I reassured him that the money I was sending for him is still his, kept safely with me, and that when he needs anything, I will find a way to help him, but it won't be through his mom anymore. He understood and seemed relieved. He also told me that he's already thinking about his future carefully and wants to choose a profession where he can be financially independent, so he never has to worry about money. Honestly, I was happily surprised by how mature and self-aware he is for a 15-year-old. Despite everything, he's handling the situation with so much understanding and perspective, and it makes me even prouder to be his sister. For now, I will keep in touch with him privately to make sure he knows he is not alone. I told him that when he grows up, I'll be there to support him, especially for things like university. He knows that no matter what happens, I will always have his back. Edit, I'm not giving him a debit card or anything as clearly he doesn't need and want it. I will save the money for his future. Stories number 3. Aita for kicking out my mom's boyfriend. When I was 17 my mom came into money. She tried to keep it quiet but she paid off my dad's debts, bought him a small house, paid off her debts and paid for my sister's college and set up funds for mine. She had a boyfriend at the time and shortly after him and his son who was 7 moved into our new house. Over the next few years mom bought my sister a house after she graduated college. Her boyfriend lived with us and didn't pay anything but he did work. When I was 21 mom got diagnosed with cancer. It wasn't good. She sat me and my sister down and went over exactly how much money there was. She intended to give her current house to me and both me and my sister were left with a large sum at the end of it. She asked if I would allow her boyfriend to stay in the house with his son until he got his own place. I agreed. Before she died she told her boyfriend he would need to look for his own place but had time to save more for that journey. For the last 4 years he has continued to reside in the house with his son. I haven't minded because we get along okay. I pay all the bills but he does buy food for him and his kid. He has dated off and on and mostly kept the women out of this house which I respected him for. Until his current partner. She's been in my house 3 times and at first besides feeling a little uncomfortable I was okay with her. The last time this past weekend was the point where I lost my shit. I was making myself some lunch when she came walking downstairs. She grabbed a plate and went to grab food out of my pan. I asked her what she thought was doing. She started telling me how I should look for somewhere else to live and leeching off my dead mom's past relationship as an adult was pathetic. I hollered for my mom's old boyfriend. He came down and I told him I didn't know what he current thing thought but I wasn't going to be disrespected in my house. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes as he mumbled something about my mom promising him the house and he was just being kind letting me stay. First that isn't remotely true. Mom pulled him and I together after she asked if he could stay to set expectations. My mom met him shortly before she won the money and told him and us girls that she had no intention of leaving him money. She did set aside a fund for his son for college when he gets there but he cannot touch it, only his son can. He has lived in this house almost 8 years without paying a dime. He should have plenty of money and if he doesn't that's on him. I told him he had 30 days to leave. I wasn't going to house someone who would lie and disrespect me in my house. He left that night with his son but his ex-wife called to tell me I am cruel and an for her son losing his house. He is here every other week. I really feel like my mom didn't expect him to still be here but my sister said she feels like I am breaking my promise to my mom and that made me feel like maybe I am the Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, if it happened exactly how you said, you're not the asshole. If she did say he had time to save, but would need to look for his own place, that means she never imagined or wanted him staying for long. So you're breaking no promises. Did she leave him any money or assets? It's totally possible that your mother would be livid if she knew her boyfriend was still living with her son after 4 years. Reply, no, she created a fund for his son for his college but that was the only money set aside for him or his son. It's a generous amount, enough for 4 years at a high-dollar school. Anything not used for school will be given to him on his 25th birthday. From what I believe she told me, a lawyer and accountant are in charge of those funds, not me or my sister, so I only know what she told us before she died. She was never married to or even engaged to her boyfriend. He lived with his sister and was saving for his own house when Mom met him. Him moving in with us was supposed to be temporary and allow him to save to buy his dream home, but he never left. My mom was like that, though she had a big heart, and sometimes people took advantage of that, especially after the money. She bought him a brand new truck when his car broke down, but beyond that and smaller gifts, like TV, computer, etc. for birthdays and holiday gifts, she did not leave him money. They had no joint accounts. My mom paid everything, and he was supposed to be saving for a house the whole time they were together. Commenter: guessing to the Miss Thangs, over the years he's lived rent utility free in OP's house. I'm also giving the stink eye to the sister, laying the guilt trip on OP for evicting him. Reply: I don't think my sister meant any harm. Probably feels a little sad like me that his son won't be around. I don't expect we will get to visit with the kid. He's 15, and we both like him and have known him a while. The three of us gamed together some over the years and usually did an outing once every month or two to arcades or amusement parks or something like that together. Commenter: I'm curious just how long your sister thinks he and son should be allowed to freeload off you. She doesn't have the warm fuzzies for him, does she? Reply: no, but she's kind of a pushover like our mom was. Super kind-hearted but to a fault. Heck, maybe I am too, to an extent. I just don't put up with disrespect. Commenter: was his GF shocked and believed him, or was she trying to start the takeover, or at least try to? It's possible he lied to her, but it's also possible she knew but was wanting to come in and take over. It happens all the time. I would hire movers if they left anything. Do not let them back in, it could be hell getting them out. Lucky they left. Reply: she seemed smug the whole time, so I suspect she put him up to it because he and I always got along before this. He didn't argue when I kicked him out. He did text me and asked to come by this weekend to get his stuff and asked if I would be willing to talk. I told him my dad and boyfriend will be here and he agreed to that. How GF reacted when she found out. She sat with her arms crossed when he and I talked, but she didn't say anything else. She left with him. OOP responds to a longer comment: thank you so much. My mom was the sweetest person, and when I was a teenager I feel like I was a nightmare to her. I am thankful I was much better in my late teens and 20 and 21, so she got to see me mature a little before she passed. I wasn't always the best daughter, but she was always the best mom. I think part of letting him stay so long is having bonded with his son, but also I liked having someone else around who loved my mom too. There were nights I would wake up from a nightmare and end up in the kitchen, and he would hear me and just come make a cup of coffee and sit and share a story about her. His son loved mom too, and some evenings we would get takeout and watch movies and joke about what commentary my mom would have had if she had seen the movie with us. My sister lives a state away, so we only really see each other once a month or so. I liked not being alone in this big house. I do have a security system and the locks have been changed. He is coming over tomorrow to get his stuff. To a detailed accusation that this is a creative writing prompt. Neither me nor my sister were teenagers and my mom passed away. I was the youngest at 21. And the funds have been in a trust, but it wasn't related to this story, and the character limit made me already limit things I said. I won't have full access to the funds left to me until I am 30, but I can request additional access through the trustees and I get monthly funds for bills and spending. My mom paid for people to manage both me, my sister's, and her boyfriend's son's trust. Yes, his college fund is in a trust as well, thus why his dad has no access to it. Personally, I love Reddit. This is a throwaway because I don't want to dox myself, and my actual account has photos of myself and my pets. But no one in my real life knows about the money except family, and my mom's boyfriend doesn't even know how much money, just that there was money. Not even my boyfriend knows. Edit to add: journey was my mom's words to her boyfriend when we all sat down, which is why I used that word. She was super into historical fiction romance novels, and she used some old phrasing in real life sometimes because of it. My sister and I used to tease her for it all the time. Update post. I know the other sub is very subjective on updates, so I figured I would post it here. I do want to take a moment to address some things I saw in the comment. 1. There are trusts set up and neither me nor my sister has full access to the money left us. This was done both because my sister and I were in our early 20s when my mom died, and she wanted to make sure we had some stability before we had access, and to protect us from people who may try to take advantage, especially while we were grieving. 2. I have a lawyer. He has already informed me legally to my area what eviction laws are, and my mom's former boyfriend will be served with formal eviction papers just to cover myself even after today. So to the update. My dad came over, decided not to have my boyfriend over since he doesn't know about the money side, and I wasn't trying to have the boyfriend out the situation, this morning, and brought along my cousin. For easier telling, I'm going to call Mom's former boyfriend Chuck. Chuck showed up about 10 a.m. my time and talked to my dad, then asked if he could have a couple of minutes alone with me. Dad nodded, so my cousin and him went into the kitchen and Chuck and I sat in the living room. I'll be honest, I didn't expect it to go as it had, but I am glad it did. Chuck started with an apology. I don't remember all of the words said, but the basics were he missed my mom, he has been lonely but not alone thanks to me and his son. He was sorry for what had happened, that he got caught up in lust and let someone else fill his head with ideas, and that he owned up to his mistakes and should have never put up with someone who would disrespect me or my mom's memory. He tried to hand me a cashier's check for $15,000. He said it wasn't much, but he wanted me to know he appreciated me and living with me and that he wanted to pay back some of what he owed. I refused the check, both in part because I never wanted his money, but I also don't want to give any possible legal leg for him to stand on if this is somehow him trying to stay. I told him the first part and told him to put it towards a house. He told me he is living with his sister but is going to look at houses with a realtor next week. He did say his son is asking about our next hangout date and said both me and my sister are welcome to arrange time with him. After all of that, my dad and cousin helped him get all the stuff out of the house that he owned. He had brought a U-Haul, and he gave me back my house keys. He apologized again and left. Not what I expected. But it went really well and I feel a lot less like I let my mom down. Sum of comments. Commenter: I'm just being nosy, sure, but how did the woman who thought she's getting you kicked out of your house respond to it all? Reply: no clue. At my house she just seemed smug and bitchy. I didn't ask Chuck about her and honestly don't care. My house is nice, but it's not like it's multi-million dollars or anything. OOP replies to a deleted comment. All of the "he is coming for your house" comments on my post kind of made me paranoid. Much happier with how he handled things, even if the check made me a little paranoid too. Commenter: where did all the money your mom got come from? Was it an inheritance? And about how much did she get? Seems like a lot to buy so much. Reply: I won't disclose any of that and it's 100% irrelevant to the judgment of the topic at hand. New update post. Previous posts on my profile I am too lazy to link. This is probably going to be my last update unless something unexpected happens, but I thought I would just give a quick update on Chuck. So Chuck called me last week and again yesterday. He put an offer on a house and yesterday got accepted. They expected close date is early next month, but I am very proud of him. I know everyone expected more drama, and honestly some of the comments had me worried, but it's been really good. He thanked me a lot for letting him have so much time here, offered me some money one more time for his time here, which I again declined, but I did offer to help him move in when the time comes. Moving sucks. He put down almost half for a down payment, so he definitely was saving money during his time here, and I'm glad everything that happened was an encouragement for him to get into a home of his own. I talked to his son yesterday after he got out of school. We are going to play laser tag this weekend with my sister and he is excited for the new house too. Stories number 4. Aita for not letting my friends use my backyard for their wedding because they do not want me to bring a +1. Here is the situation. Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house was the hangout spot for my friends and I throughout our childhood. This includes my friend, Dave. The house has a sizable amount of land, which includes a lake and a gazebo. I was supposed to buy the house with my now ex-girlfriend, Leslie, but, going through the process of getting approved to buy, I found out that she has massive amounts of credit card and personal debt that she hid from me throughout our 4 years together. I decided to break up as a result. That was about 6 months ago. I met Leslie because Dave's long-term girlfriend, Kim, is Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are engaged and set to get married in April. When I was buying the house, they asked if they could have the ceremony at the gazebo, which I agreed to do. In December, I started dating again. Leslie has not taken this well at all. She thinks we are going to get back together and has tried multiple times to make that happen. I have told her in no uncertain terms that isn't happening. Dave and Kim have asked me to not bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake. I have told them that this request is ridiculous. This wedding is happening at my house, using my land, and I am not allowed to bring a date because of a crazy ex. If that is the case, then they need to find a new venue for the wedding. They are pissed about this given the short time frame of when the wedding is supposed to happen. So, we are at an impasse. Aita Reddit. I have seen a few things brought up a number of times in the comments, so I will quickly address them here. I am fully aware of the liability issues, which is why I purchased, and they reimbursed me for a special event insurance policy which will provide 100% coverage for any damages, claims, injuries, etc. to any of the property or persons up to $2 million. It is one of the first things we did after I agreed to have the event in my home. The wedding will have a maximum, if every comes, of 75 guests, 5 catering staff, and 5 security staff. the security is because this is an open area that anyone walking past can access. The house has hosted events twice this size and logistically it has been fine. On the property are 2 cottages, one with 1 bathroom and the other with 2 bathrooms. The only portion of my house that will not be locked during the wedding is the finished basement. The basement has 2 bathrooms. Every person who is single, i.e. not in an established relationship, received an invitation with a +1, including me and Leslie. This talk came after I sent in my return card and indicated I was bringing a +1. Now, they are saying they do not want me to have the +1 because Leslie blew up about it and they are afraid of a blow-up at the wedding. Leslie indicated she intends to bring someone on her card. I do not know if she will actually bring someone. Top comments. Commenter 1. They want to tell you who you can have at your own home and think is fine, they're nuts. Commenter 2. Pull an Uno reverse. Tell them Leslie isn't allowed on your property and watch their heads explode. Update. So, I met with Dave this morning. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything. I laid it out that I thought he was, at best, a shitty friend. I went through our long history of various things over the years that has me questioning our friendship. That was the bulk of our conversation. We then turned to the breakup with Leslie and the shit show of the last 6 months. Throughout the last 6 months, despite Leslie's craziness, I have bent over backwards to try and accommodate her feelings. She has shown up to my house in the middle of the night. I did not go for a restraining order. When I go out, I do not go to places I know that her and her family like to go. She has implied to her family and mutual friends, at various times, that I cheated and/or that I took advantage of her financially. Neither of which is true at all. I have held my tongue to not embarrass her about these things in front of her friends and family. Dave knows all that and yet is demanding, once again, that I put Leslie's feelings before my own. I said, you and everyone need to stop coddling her like she is a fucking child. Dave concedes that Leslie has been crazy and ridiculous since the breakup. But, he says, she feels she did not get closure after the relationship. She wants to have an evening where she can talk to you to get that closure. He also told me that Leslie has been very vigilant about paying off her debt and paid off almost $10,000 of the credit card debt. She wants to talk to me about her progress. To see if that might cause me to change my mind. It will not. I asked him, so, do you expect me to go to the wedding and talk to her? Because I have her blocked everywhere and, date or not, I do not plan to say a single mumbling word to her. He said, I fully expect she would lose it if y'all do not talk at the wedding. I told him if that is the case, then, for the good of my property, I can't have Leslie come. If she is so unstable that I need to be coerced into a conversation with her, she is too unsafe to be a guest, in any capacity in my home. So, I have told him, based on what he has told me, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land. I am willing to still have the wedding at my place, but I cannot trust Leslie won't do something given what you are telling me. Dave lost it at this point. He said, fuck you and your shit. I don't need it. So, I said, then the wedding is off. He left. So, that is the state of things. Top comments. Commenter 1. To add, the day of the wedding is not the time to get closure and at the wedding is not the place to get closure. Your friends are okay with her hijacking their ceremony so she can sleep better at night? Yeah, that would be a big, not happening, any of it, from me. Commenter 2. Well, I think one of your key takeaways from this is that you need to start living your life, stop avoiding places you normally go to, clarify to people why you broke up, not that you cheated, and put together any evidence of her crazy behavior so you can get a restraining order if needed. You also need to tell people why the wedding isn't happening at your place, as you know they're going to make you out to be the bad guy. Commenter 3. BS, he wants you and Leslie to get back together. You said nothing unreasonable. The point is not that she is paying her bills now. The point is she lied to you and hid this debt for 4 years. That's the issue. That is crazy. Your so-called friend is siding with her. He all but tried to coerce you into talking to her at the wedding. They can find another venue if she is that damn important. Stories number 5. Aita for not helping our former friend who tried to get my fiance deported. I, F26, am white and my fiance, M31, is originally Japan but has pretty much been living here in the States since he was 13 and yes is a US citizen. I also have a group of friends from college and in that group was a woman who we'll call Karen, F25, who was the sister of our friend who I will call Ruth. Ruth, who is a genuinely nice person, was our friend but her sister Karen was the golden child sibling who only hung out with us because she, Karen, cannot maintain IRL friendships of her own in part due to her antisocial tendencies and their mom pretty much pushed us to let Karen hang out with us since Karen was jealous of Ruth having real friends and we only tolerated Karen because of Ruth, who also didn't really want Karen hanging out with us. When Ruth moved here to the Northeast for college from Mississippi, Karen also followed her and their mom pushed Ruth to let Karen stay with her. Unlike the five of us, Karen did not go to college with us, scoffed at the idea of higher education, and the only things she knew were what she saw online or whatever her boyfriend of the day was into. Over the years, since gradually became more and more hateful towards the LGBT, Jews, and immigrants, bear in mind that my mom is an immigrant from the Czech Republic, thus we started distancing ourselves from her after first noticing it at around 2020 or so. Ruth unfortunately passed away in 2023 after a biking accident, but we continued to allow Karen to hang out with us because of pity, I guess, but a couple in our group outright cut her off after Ruth's passing while the rest of us just tried to gradually distance her, hoping she'd get the message or get bored and stop trying to contact us. However, the breaking point was on October last year when Karen reported my fiancé to ICE because she thought or wanted to believe he was an undocumented migrant, and when we confronted Karen, the conversation boiled down to that she felt it was wrong for me as a white woman to be with an Asian man, and she felt that white girls like me should be with men who look like me, and she felt uncomfortable with how my family is very welcoming and accepting of my fiancé. I come from a very liberal, upper middle class family, and we'd often take my fiancé out with us on family outings, be it at our family's vacation home in Lake Champlain or sailing to Block Island on my grandpa's yacht. That said, Karen felt that someone of my status should be with someone who looked like me, saying that my fiancé didn't deserve my family, or words to that effect, and that she plainly said she wanted my fiancé deported so she could try to hook me up with the brother of her then boyfriend. Mind you, her then boyfriend, with whom she has a kid with, and his brother are misogynists who constantly shares Andrew Tate interviews, can't hold a job for long, yet expects women to stay home and know their place, whereas my fiancé works in mental health and I work for my grandpa's law firm. After that, the rest of us told her to F off, and up until the last week or two, we've gone NC with her. That said, after her boyfriend left her and their son, she showed up at my door with her baby one day to demand that since my family is well off, I should help her, buy her groceries, and ask my grandpa to give her a job since her EBT card wasn't working and her now ex vanished. I reminded her of how she tried to get my fiancé deported and how I'm not her friend so she should just F off. Apparently, she's also been badgering others in our friend group, and her mom even called me, telling me off for not helping Karen and trying to justify what Karen did by saying she was just doing what's best for you. I then asked her that since she's Karen's mom, why doesn't she help Karen or take her back in, to which the mom said that her new boyfriend doesn't like having Karen or her other kids around. I reminded Karen's mom that Ruth was our friend but Karen is not, and we have no obligations to Karen. Sorry if this is long, but it pisses me the hell off. Correction, I previously, incorrectly mentioned that her EBT card wasn't working due to the government. My bad, I assumed that EBT cards not working was somehow caused by Trump's executive order to freeze federal funding for certain programs, so I incorrectly mentioned that. I've never had to use Snap or Wix, so I have no idea how those things work. Update, additional info, for those wondering why we put up with Karen. Ruth was a super nice and amazing person, but she was also easily manipulated and pressured by her mom. That said, Ruth's mom said that if Karen isn't allowed to hang out with us, Ruth wouldn't be allowed to hang out with us either, and yes, Ruth was an adult, but she couldn't really break the control and manipulation her mom had over her. Additionally, when Ruth passed away, we only allowed Karen to hang out with us, mainly out of pity as her sister just died and we knew she had nobody else if not for us. Admittedly, pity did kinda cloud our judgment, and yes, I agree we should have cut Karen off immediately when we first noticed her racist and homophobic tendencies, if not ban her from hanging out with us to begin with. Comments. Commenter 1. Just a wild guess here, but I think the reason Karen wanted your Japanese fiancé deported and for you to hook up with her boyfriend's brother is, yes, racism, but also, A, she wanted your way of life and felt that if you started dating or even married her boyfriend's brother, you'd also take him, Karen's boyfriend, and Karen on those family outings as well. Frankly speaking, your family seems to be rich, so she wanted to essentially marry into your family, by getting you to marry her boyfriend's brother and her to eventually marry her boyfriend. B, she knew she was on thin ice with the rest of your group, so if you started dating her boyfriend's brother, she was hoping this would stabilize her place in the group as she has nobody else. P.S. I'm not a Trump supporter, but while Trump CEOs did freeze funding for WIC and SNAP, I don't think it would have been the cause for Karen's EBT being declined. Chances are her balance just ran down to $0, hence she'll have to wait until it reloads again. Commenter 2. NTA, but you knew that already. YWBTA to your fiancé if you let her anywhere near you though. Update. I write, so in my last post, I, F26, mentioned that a racist former friend, who I will call Karen, tried to get my Japanese-American fiancé, M31, deported, only for her to come back begging for help after her EBT card stopped working, her boyfriend ditching her and her now being a single mom. Firstly though, I would like to address a common question from my last post. Why did we tolerate Karen for as long as we did? We were friends with her older sister Ruth, who went to college with us. Ruth was the kindest and nicest person most people would ever meet, but Karen, despite not going to college herself, traveled up here to the Northeast following Ruth because their hometown was boring. Basically, their mom wouldn't allow Ruth to have friends unless Karen was included, as Karen can't seem to maintain friendships or relationships of her own. Ruth unfortunately had trouble saying no to her controlling and manipulative mom, hence we tolerated Karen so we could continue having Ruth hang out with us. After Ruth passed away, we only tolerated Karen for a few more months, mostly out of pity, but even then, we were already trying to distance her from us by organizing get-togethers that didn't include Karen, not engaging Karen in conversation whenever possible, and basically hoping she got bored of us and would leave on her own. That didn't work, and admittedly, it was too passive. Also, I have no idea how EBT cards even work, hence I assumed it not working had something to do with the government. Now to the update. For this Valentine's Day weekend, my fiance and I drove up here to my grandpa's vacation home in Lake Champlain for a few days of relaxing, hot cocoa, chill and Netflix. Yesterday, my friends, who I will call Chantel and Kate, called me to say that Karen came back and knocking on Kate's door, demanding that we let Karen back into our friend group and support her, as well as demanding to speak with me and Luna. This time Karen came along with her mom, son, stepdad and 2 stepbrothers, who decided to drive up all the way from Mississippi for this. Chantel and Kate told Karen that we don't want anything to do with her, as well as mentioning that Luna and I were away, and not in town. They got into an argument with Karen and her family, with Karen's mom apparently calling Kate, Kamala, in a mocking tone. Note that Kate is mixed race, as her mom is black and her dad being white, with Karen's mom telling them that since we were friends with Ruth, we for some reason need to do what she, Karen's mom, says and need to support Karen and her child. Chantel told Karen's mom that just because it was easy for her to manipulate and boss around Ruth, doesn't mean she gets to do the same with us, as we have nothing to do with Karen or her family. Additionally, she went on to say that if Karen is really so desperate for support, why doesn't Karen just move back to Mississippi with her family? With Karen replying by saying something along the lines of, "I deserve to live the way you all live," and Karen's mom mentioning that her husband, Karen's stepdad, doesn't want Karen or her kid living with them. When Karen's stepbrother, upon noticing security cameras in Kate's house, started trying to rip out her doorbell camera, followed by Karen and her family running off when Kate's dad finally called 911. However, before they left, they used their truck to deliberately sideswipe Kate's dad's Lexus, driving into their garage door, and Karen shouting, "People like you, Kate, don't deserve to live in a nice house like this," as they drove away. Given the gravity of the situation, I did notify my parents of what happened and that Karen and her family may try to come over to our home, as well as warning Luna as well. I also called the police back in my hometown on the non-emergency line of the incident at Kate's home, and that they, Karen's family, may try to come over again to my home, but thankfully they haven't done so yet. In turn, Kate and Chantel have also given statements to the police as well. Note, no real names were used in this story, and certain small details were changed a little just for the sake of the privacy of everyone involved. Comments. Commenter 1. Karen is insane. Commenter 2. Karen's whole fucking family is insane other than the dearly departed Ruth. Commenter 3. Cops, charges, the whole 9 yards. Have your friend sue the living shite out of them, and chip in to help get them a good lawyer. It's money well spent when you can remove trash like them, for acts like this. Reply, Kate comes from a family of lawyers, so yeah, they're good on that and they do plan to press charges. I'll also be giving a statement if required, as in my last post, Karen did come over to my place as well. Stories number 6. Aita for exposing an influencer to her family after she demanded a free painting and $200 on top of that, threatening to tell her followers not to buy from me if I refused. My mom's goddaughter, let's call her Jen, 29F, asked me, 25F, to do a painting for her because she saw I did one for a mutual friend, let's call her Anna. Jen wanted the painting as a gift for her father, who is a retired photographer. Here's the thing, Anna paid me for the painting, and everything went smoothly. She posted a picture of the painting with her mom as she was gifting it to her. Well, Jen saw that painting and became interested in one for her father. The problem is, she wanted me to do it for free. She said she would advertise it on her Instagram and tell her fans to buy from me in exchange for the painting. I told her no, as I am not in a great financial spot right now, and I cannot afford to do something for free. She wanted a custom-sized canvas, which is not commonly found in stores. I would either have to have it made myself or try to find it online for a reasonable price. I explained this to her, but she still didn't understand. She said I already had the materials on hand and that she didn't think art materials were that expensive. She accused me of being greedy and not having a vision for business, claiming that her exposure would be more valuable than my art. She also said she wanted me to pay her $200 on top of the free painting, arguing that with her help, I would make so much money, and companies pay her to review things. She pointed out that every creative artist or individual, including her father, did free work at the beginning. Everything went downhill when she noticed I wasn't replying, I was working, and she started talking down on me because I was let go from the military, for medical reasons beyond my control. She said I had failed at everything, including that, and that she was giving me the option to succeed and make my parents proud. Since I wasn't replying, she called my mom to complain that I didn't want to do a free painting for her. As I mentioned, she's my mom's goddaughter, and my mom seems to have a preference for her. Mom called me back and demanded I do the painting for free. I became enraged. Jen's words about my parents not being proud of me stuck in my head. So, I decided to draw a 2-second sketch and told her that was her free painting and to leave me alone. She became really angry and threatened to post on her socials, telling her followers not to buy from me and to ruin my art career. I've received a few phone calls from my mom, which I haven't answered, and some hate messages from what I assume are her followers. Aita for exposing her texts to her family, including the internet. Comments. Commenter 1. The more influencers who get exposed for the cons they are, the better. Expose away. NTA. Commenter 2. OP should also show her mom, then ask if she is paying for the canvas, any supplies needed and the $200 fee to be promoted, which guarantees 0 commissions. Flat out no. I don't work for free. Commenter 3. Show the girl's dad. Commenter 4. This is what I came here to see. He's an artist, I'm sure he would be so proud of his baby girl for having 0 appreciation for the process, cost or heart that goes into the work. Jen sounds like a spoiled, insufferable brat. Commenter 6. And it's supposed to be a gift, for him. It'll be real nice for dad to find out Jen's extorting a family friend's daughter, a young artist just starting out, insulting her to boot and using his name experiences to do so. And is such a shitty little grifting POS she expects OP to pay her to do the work. Jen's such a dirtbag she doesn't want to spend money on a gift for dad, bet that'll make dad feel fantastically loved by his daughter. Update. Hi everyone. Just wanted to give a quick update. I did tell her dad about it. We had a brief talk, and he told me she's been acting out due to problems in her relationship, not sure if that's true. He also mentioned that she has been battling alcohol and substance abuse, which has made her more prone to picking fights. She has had recurrent issues, with family and friends complaining to him about it. He said it was his fault for always giving her what she wanted and for raising her spoiled. Either way, he assured me that he was going to talk to her and ask her never to contact me again. He also asked me not to tell her boyfriend about it, as they are on the brink of separation. Her attitude toward others is one of the reasons they are having problems. Her dad is a sweetheart, and he's currently going through dialysis. I told him it's fine as long as she never contacts me or my family again. As for my mother, I've never gotten along with her, so I've blocked her for now. I'm not sure if it'll be forever, but I'm trying to find peace. For those who asked me to expose her publicly, I am not going to do that. That was never my plan. I never said I would. I only said I would expose her to her family. I appreciate all the support I've received and those who have reached out to check on me. Y'all are great. I would appreciate it if you guys didn't DM me asking for usernames or if you are a news reporter. I really don't care, and I'm not here to get clout, as some say. I just wanted to know if I'd be in the wrong, and I got my verdict. This might not be the update y'all were wanting, but that's the only one I have for now. Comments. He also mentioned that she has been battling alcohol and substance abuse, which has made her more prone to picking fights. She has had recurrent issues. This is not your problem and should not have any impact your decisions. Stories number 7. Aita for calling CPS on my family and asking to be removed from our house. My parents have 4 kids. There's me, 16M, and I'm the oldest, and then I have 2 younger sisters, 13 and 10, and a younger brother, 12. Our dad drinks a lot. He's had issues with alcohol for as long as I can remember. He doesn't work, doesn't do anything around the house, never wants to talk to any of us, and that leaves it all on mom. Except my mom puts a lot of it on me. For a long time I did it willingly and I wanted to help keep us together. But I started to feel resentful in the last 2 years, and then I realized if I wanted a better life I needed out and I needed to stop things staying the same. My siblings have no expectation to help. My mom said there can be too many people helping and it needs to be just me. So I was making after school snacks and getting dinner ready for when mom got home. I was left in charge if my mom wasn't home for any reason. Even if dad was there, because we never knew when he'd just get up and go to the bar. I had to make sure homework was done before mom got home, and I had to forge her signature on stuff, with mom's permission, because she wanted to come home and relax after a long day at work. My mom left me in charge of paying the bills online too. She had a checklist for me, and once a month I had to go through the list and pay them all off. If we didn't have enough, I needed to get my siblings and go to the bank and deposit more money in my parents' account. Sometimes that meant looking for Dad's wallet and taking money from him, and other times it meant taking from my minimal savings to use that. I have no savings left because of it. On weekends I still got put in charge of feeding my siblings, sometimes my parents too. I found out my mom was eating out frequently on weekends while running errands, and that pisses me off because we struggled with money a lot and we had more than I realized. She just used it to spoil herself. The other thing was she'd bring home snacks for my siblings but wouldn't bring me anything. She was also giving them money behind my back and again nothing for me. Then my siblings wanted to do more stuff and Mom slowly started putting the responsibility of walking them to those places on me. She had a car. But she'd tell me she needed a break and stuff. There were nights she'd go out with her friends too, and some nights she didn't even come home or got back at 5 a.m. But if I asked for permission to sleep at a friend's house or see a movie with my friend, she'd tell me we didn't have the money and she couldn't be without me. My siblings got to hang out with their friends if they wanted, but my mom always had excuses for why I couldn't. She started going out more frequently and sometimes with my dad. I tried talking to my mom, but she didn't care about giving me time off. All she'd talk about was how hard she worked her ass off for us. And she'd tell me I was young and didn't get stressed as much or need breaks like someone older. My grades started slipping this year. It was too much for me to keep up with, and Mom got an email about it and she refused to speak to my guidance counselor about it. The guidance counselor set up a meeting. She didn't say anything to me. I was told by my guidance counselor in November about it. I asked Mom why and she said the reality is I might need to drop out anyway, so why would she waste her time? I sat on that for a few weeks and then I spoke to my school about everything. My guidance counselor called CPS and so did one of my teachers. But then I called and told them everything, and I talked about there not being enough food in the house because at that point there wasn't, and how we didn't even have money in our school lunch accounts. Someone from CPS came and I begged them to take me. There were several visits before I was actually removed. My siblings weren't because Mom put money in their accounts after the initial CPS visit, and she explained that she had called their schools before and had allowed the account to overdraw and she paid it off after a few weeks. CPS is still involved, but I'm staying with a family member. CPS are trying to reunite me, but I have said I don't want to go back. On top of all the stuff with my parents, my siblings have turned into really shitty people who don't give a fuck about me. Yes, our parents thought them that, but I don't feel the need to save them anymore or even care if they get put through what I was. At the start of the month my mom and siblings figured out I was the one who called. Some of the details brought up finally connected in their heads and they're pissed at me. Mom said I was doing better than a lot of kids and my actions came across as being those of a spoiled brat. She told me the fact I asked to be removed spoke about what my character is and how easy I find it to abandon my family. Stories number 8. My best friend, 29M, and I, 29F, had drunken sex. Why am I now catching feelings? I've known this friend since pre-K. We were raised in a small town and pretty much grew up together. I had the biggest crush on him all throughout elementary but then stopped come middle school. Our friendship lasted through all those years and he even took me to prom after my ex of 3 years broke up with me a few weeks before the day. Both our parents were thrilled to see us go to prom together. One night in college, both of us 21, I had him stay at my place after getting drunk as I didn't want him driving. He asked me then to make a promise with him that if by the time we turned 30 and were both single, we'll marry each other. Thinking this is drunk talk, I agreed to it as he wouldn't take me telling him he was drunk and needed to go to sleep as an answer. We've both been in and out of relationships since and now are both single. I stayed at his place for a weekend to go out with mutual friends and have fun. The first night we came back home and had drunk sex. We woke up in the morning and were both shocked that we actually did it. We talked about it, laughed it off and went about our day as normal. No awkwardness at all. The next night when we both got into bed he had asked, so we shouldn't have sex, right? I laughed as I was still in shock from the night before but also started to overthink if saying yes was the right answer or to say no. Then he said, because I don't think we should. We didn't but ended up cuddling throughout the night and even the next morning on the couch while watching TV. I'm now back home and questioning if I'm actually developing feelings, or more so uncovering feelings that were there for years before, for him, or if it's just the excitement from all the feel-good emotions. Why would he ask, so we shouldn't have sex, right, if he wasn't thinking of wanting to? Reliving that night, I'm thinking I should have said we should just to see what his reaction would have been. Had he agreed, I would have been okay with it. Is this the beginning of some overdue relationship that our families have been manifesting for years, or am I just getting caught up in my emotions? Update, y'all. Let me first thank everyone who was in the comments. Y'all really helped push me outside of my comfort zone and I do not regret it one bit. So once I had the courage, I texted him asking if when he said, "So we shouldn't have sex, right?" did he want to. His response, "LMFAO duh, but you shut that shit down real quick." So I was like, I am a respect your wishes." I died laughing. We talked about this for a while and I told him I wish I had taken more initiative and been more vulnerable while I was there, as I regretted not doing either. We then spent the next 4 hours sending audio messages to each other talking about that night and just the time we spent together. My voice was so shaky in these messages, as being vulnerable is something I'm not good with, but with him, I don't have a fear of being open and honest. Definitely a feeling I haven't felt in a while. We've spent the last week just having random conversations and learning a little more about each other. He was telling me about his job and shared his goals and dreams. The passion and enthusiasm he had while talking about this was so energizing. I couldn't help but have the biggest smile on my face while reading his messages. At this point, I just wanted to know more about him. Which is so crazy to think, because it's like I've known him all my life, but I don't really know him or how he got to where he is today. It's been so interesting and I'm loving every part of it. The other day we reminisce over our first real interaction together, a kindergarten Valentine's Day dance. I shared with him how Lil Pre-K, my name, prayed that day would happen and how all the love letters I wrote to him paid off. Yes, I used to write this kid love letters. He was in the AM pre-K class and I was in the PM. One day he came in during my class to get his backpack, assuming he left early that day and had to come back to get it. After that day, the first thing I'd do when I got dropped off for class was sit at the craft table, write him a love letter and put it in his cubby for the morning. Crazy to think I used to do this, but like I said in the original post, I was crushing on this kid so hard in elementary. He told me, "LMAO, my mom would freak out every time I brought a note home. Who's this little girl writing you love notes?" Y'all, I swear I'm not making any of this up, lol. I hope one day I can share pictures with y'all so my story has more to it and doesn't just sound like a crazy love story. I'll be visiting him soon so we can talk and have the real get to know you conversations, and I cannot wait. It's crazy to see he is feeling the same way. We both admitted that seeing each other's names come across our phones and feeling the way we do is like, damn, is this really happening? I just feel so lucky and my heart is so overwhelmed with happiness that I can cry. Maybe there will be another update, but at least for now, thank y'all again for telling me to go for it. Best decision I've made in a very long time. Emma, enjoy my lover girl era now. Stories number 9. Aita for avoiding my mom after she told me to suck it up when I broke my fingers. I was at the gym where a heavy weight fell onto 3 of the fingers on my left hand. I was in such severe pain that I thought I was going to pass out. While sobbing, I called my mom, as I am at college, far away from home. I told her that I thought I broke my fingers, and that I wanted to go to urgent care. My mom has never been empathetic for physical injuries and mental health issues. When she heard me, she told me to suck it up and rest. I figured I would wait for a while, who knows, she could be right. Edit. I feel I should mention that my fingers did not look deformed, so other than the bruising and swelling I was unsure if they were broken or not. While waiting, my roommate came home and saw the state that I was in. She took one look at my hand and assured me we had to go to urgent care. I didn't want to betray my mom, because she always said to never go to the ER or urgent care due to our terrible insurance. However, I went and researched the cost of an out-of-pocket X-ray at the nearest urgent care, and it was only $200, which I was willing to pay. I told my mom this, and she said, "You better hope your fingers are broken or else I'm not helping you pay for anything." So I was under a weird circumstance where I hoped my fingers were broken for the sake of saying, "I told you so," to my mom. I finally went to urgent care and got an X-ray. They confirmed both my pointer and middle fingers were broken, and may need surgery if not healed properly. When I called my mom back later that day and told her the news, she basically laughed and told me I should be glad that they were broken. 3 weeks have gone by, and I have not spoken to her since. She's texted me and asked for updates on my fingers, but I feel conflicted on why she's suddenly acting like she cares when she clearly didn't in the first place. She's also not someone you can easily share your feelings with, so I'm not sure how to go about our next conversation. Should I just ignore it, or try to bring it up with her? Edit. I was not expecting the overflow of NTA comments, and I have gotten asked about why I believe I am the asshole. I spoke to my brother about it, and he told me that I was overreacting and that she just wants to check up on me, and probably feels bad for diminishing my issues. Stories number 10. Aita for being uncomfortable with my fiance, F21, going on a trip with her, 29M, best friend. My fiance, F21, who I am marrying in 3 months, is currently on a trip with her best friend, M29, and I am stuck alone at home just thinking non-stop about it. To preface, we have been in a bit of a rough patch over the holidays. During Thanksgiving, I looked over my fiance's shoulder to see that she was texting her guy best friend about our sex life. When I brought it up, it was in a half-joking manner, but it got across I was uncomfortable with it. She shut down on me. I felt pretty abandoned in that moment, as she instantly went to that guy best friend to talk about it, as I once again saw her texting from over her shoulder. Starting it off with, apparently OP is pissed about us talking about sex. About 20 minutes of laying in bed not talking to each other, we talked it over and she said she wouldn't do it again now that she knew I was uncomfortable with it. In September, she had discussed going on a trip to Vegas as a couple's trip with her, me, her guy best friend, and his girlfriend, F28. I was fine with this, and was excited to go. I took the appropriate days off work, and was looking forward to it. Later on she said that plane ticket prices were up more than she could afford. She works in aviation so she's more knowledgeable than me about this kind of stuff, and the trip would just be her and her guy friend. This was before the incident on Thanksgiving, so I saw no issue. Fast forward to this past week, I had told her that just her and him going on the trip would make me uncomfortable. She said she wouldn't go if I was uncomfortable with it, but they had gotten a room with 2 separate beds and had set ground rules. I didn't want to be controlling, so I said they should still go on the trip, because I didn't want my insecurity to ruin their good time. Now that they just got there today, the reality of the situation set in for me. I told my family about it because they could tell I was upset, and they all said they wouldn't be comfortable if they were in my situation. I know that them going on the trip was partially my doing, given I gave the okay. I just feel like telling her that she can't do it again when she gets back, cause I know if the shoe was on the other foot, and I went on a trip alone with a female, she would be super upset. Not sure what to do, as I am considering postponing the wedding because of this. My family told me to make a Reddit post to get some insight, so here I am. Thanks for reading. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA. You should not be marrying anyone who would plan a couples trip and then cut out the SOs so that they can go alone together to Vegas. A woman who loved her fiancé would not do that. She has an inappropriate relationship with this guy. She has no business talking to him about your sex life. She sounds immature and definitely not ready for marriage. Reply. We had a couples counseling appointment on Thursday, and I said I couldn't trust her, and I have been making myself responsible for her feelings, and I won't tolerate guilt-tripping or other manipulative tactics for my partner to get what they want. We are taking a 3-month break, and if we do get back together, we will be starting from scratch. I am taking this time to reflect upon what I value in a partner, as well as taking time to get back in touch with who I am. Thanks for all the support and insight. Really helped me through this difficult time, smiley face. Commenter 2. Are you okay? Reply. I'm doing a lot better. Still definitely in the grieving process, but I also feel like I have been grieving this relationship for a long time. I've come to realize, even if they didn't physically cheat, which I highly doubt, at bare minimum I was emotionally cheated on. Your partner should be your person, and you should be comfortable to share anything with them. I wasn't, because I knew she had no concept of boundaries, and would blab about our relationship to her friends, one of them being the guy she went on the trip with. It's not that this friend was a guy that upsets me, but the fact she felt like he should have intimate details of our relationship. She considered cutting them off during Thanksgiving because of her assumptions that they had blocked her, because she was spamming them with texts and they wouldn't respond. All in all, I am trying to pick up the pieces, and learn to live for myself again, as well as trying to shed myself of my people-pleasing survival tactic. Loneliness sucks, but it's way better than staying in a relationship out of a fear of being alone, especially if you are being mistreated. Update. I've had a lot of comments asking for an update in the replies of my last post, and it has been long enough to where I feel my grieving process is essentially over. That and something happened recently that opened my eyes. TLDR for last post, my ex-fiancé, F22, went on a trip with one of her male friends, who is almost 30, and left me at home. I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate every comment I got on the last post. I really appreciate the insight, and it helped me realize that I was in a toxic relationship. I didn't feel like I could tell her my real feelings, out of fear it would upset her. When I would upset her, she would often melt down completely, and throw a pity party. These guilt trips would influence me to do things for her to make her happy. I definitely had a role in that, and it goes back to how I was treated as a child, and how I developed people-pleasing behavior as a coping mechanism, but there was a lot in that relationship that I shouldn't have been putting up with in the first place. She would get weird if I had any female friends, or even if I was just hanging out with my best friend and his girlfriend, which is ironic given the circumstances. Looking back, there were very obvious signs she didn't care about me anymore. She would constantly show me TikToks as opposed to actually spending quality time with me, and when she wasn't showing me TikToks, she was texting the other guy while in my bed with me. She texted and called me a day before my birthday, and told me amongst other things, that we shouldn't get back together, we weren't going to anyways, and that the guy she went on the trip with and his girlfriend had broken up. I didn't really care about all this, and it just made me angry. I was upset that even after a month of not speaking, she has the audacity to not consider my feelings as a priority whatsoever. She never even apologized once. I made my feelings known to her. She of course got defensive, saying she didn't like my passive aggression, and that her autism made her not understand social cues. All in all, this confirmed to me that I had made the right decision. She had asked me to take the original post down, as I had told her about its existence in a moment of anger. The post is still up. I would like to say, to anyone in a toxic relationship, you are worth more than what they are giving you. You are worth more than the bare minimum consideration. You deserve to surround yourself with people that make you happy and encourage you to grow as a person, not someone that drains your energy and only seems to take. You aren't responsible for how anyone else feels. I love you all, and I'm ready to start this new chapter of my life. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I understand autism and not understanding social cues. She's straight up manipulating or attempting to manipulate to get what she wants. I'll bet that trip with the guy friend was to break everyone up to get her and him together. Good riddance to her. Reply. I really tried to be understanding and patient with her. Just seemed like it was used more as an excuse. Commenter 2. Her autism. Her what? LOL. Her WAT. LMFAO. I cannot even the lie is so palpable you can almost spit it from across the electronic screen. Thank God you are free. I hope you find someone who completes you, makes you whole, and may you return this same vibe to them. Together may you and whomever you are with grow like great trees in the journey of life, for joy, delight and prosperity too. But, remember to not rush romance. You're looking for your best friend, your life partner. That comes perfectly when you are ready. So work on you until then. Reply. I am for sure working on myself now. The more time has gone on, the more I think of instances where she emotionally manipulated me into things I wasn't comfortable with. Hell, I was on the fence about proposing, but she thought in her head that we would get engaged after 2 years together, even though she knew I wasn't ready. I went into debt for this woman, and she didn't respect me enough to stay loyal. I appreciate the kind words, and I wish nothing but the best for you. Stories number 11. My boyfriend hit me and I want to break up with. He claims it wasn't a real hit. Hi, this just happened about half an hour ago. I wanted to be a little silly, and I touched the neck of my boyfriend with icy cold fingers. I had been walking our dogs in the cold. I stood behind him. He turned halfway to me and hit with his fist against my thigh. Hard. It really hurt and the pain lingered for several minutes. He apologized in the next moment, but I said right in this instant that I want to break up. Little background story, about 2 weeks ago he already hit me lightly with his fist against my upper arm. Back then we had an argument in public and he wanted me to shut up. It hurt but not a lot. But the intention got me worried. We have a 6-month-old son together and live together. I need to know if I'm overreacting. Thank you in advance. Edit on the next day. Thank you all so much for your answers, insights, stories and support. I'm super grateful. But with now over 4,000 comments I can't possibly answer or even read them all. I hear you loud and clearly and will take safety precautions. Stories number 12. They just cancelled my sterilization. And every other woman's within the organization. I live in Michigan. I'm a 26Y. I had bilateral salpingectomy scheduled for the 24th. I had this scheduled since before January. I had my pre-op appointment last week. I just got a call from my doctor's office saying they no longer will be doing the procedure. At all. This was under Trinity Health, a Catholic organization, but my doctor was wonderful and had no issues agreeing to do the surgery. Yes, this was a Catholic organization. But I fear this is only the beginning. I have an appointment under a different organization tomorrow to discuss options. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I just want to add. Everyone is focusing on the fact this is a Catholic institution. Trinity Health is huge in Michigan. My primary care provider is through Trinity and she is the first doctor to ever take me seriously. She was a last resort after a lifetime of medical gaslighting. When I saw the OBGYN she was incredibly knowledgeable, kind, compassionate and professional. There was never ever any hint that they would cancel. Never a peep. At the pre-op appointment last week everything was business as usual. Should I have gone to a Catholic organization to get this procedure done? In hindsight I guess not. That being said, this illuminates a bigger issue. Since our healthcare is privatized they have the option to claim religious reasons to cancel these procedures. It is wrong, terrifying and like I said, I fear this is only the beginning. Stories number 13. I run away because I'm child-free and I feel like my fiance was trying to get me pregnant. I've, 26F, always known I didn't want kids. From a young age, even when adults asked me how many kids I wanted, my answer was always none. I didn't even know what child-free meant, but I always was. As I got older, I realized what it was. I just didn't feel that unconditional love that's supposed to come with having children. Could I love a child? What if? I can't be a mother because I don't know what that kind of love feels like. That's how I've spent my whole life. Then I met my fiancé, 34M, 2 years ago. He was my first everything, and I finally experienced romantic love. But when it came to kids, I still knew I couldn't do it from the beginning. I told him that having kids was off the table. He said he was fine with that because he never really liked kids, so it wasn't a problem for him. 5 months ago, he proposed, and I said yes. We moved in together, and everything was perfect. We were planning our wedding slowly, no rush. That was until his sister had a baby 2 months ago. My fiancé instantly fell in love with his nephew and was there every step of the way. He bathed him, changed him, napped with him. It seemed normal, I guess, so I didn't mind. 3 weeks ago, we went to his sister's house for lunch. My fiancé was mowing her lawn when she asked me to watch the baby for a couple of minutes. I tried to refuse, but she looked so down that I agreed. I thought she would just put him in his stroller or something, but she plopped him into my arms and went upstairs. I panicked. I had never held such a small baby before, and I was terrified I might drop him. 5 minutes in, he started crying. At first, it was fine, but then he started screaming at the top of his lungs. How can such a tiny baby be so loud? I was almost in tears myself. I stood up as gently as I could and went outside where my fiancé was. I yelled at him to come grab the baby from me. He came over, took a picture of me holding the baby, and instead of taking him from me, he started giving me tips on how to calm him down. He pushed the baby closer to my chest and said, "He really suits you." I was on the verge of a panic attack, my hands trembling. I was even more scared to drop him. I yelled, "If you don't grab him, I'm putting him on the floor." He got angry, called me a bitch, and grabbed the baby. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I took an Uber home. He came home around midnight, showered, and went to sleep on the couch. The next morning, he was already gone when I woke up, and he didn't come home until 3 a.m. I told him we needed to talk, but he just said, "Tomorrow," and went back to the couch. The next day, when I came home from work, he was waiting for me. We sat down, and he apologized for how he reacted, saying he didn't know what got into him. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Me, do you want to have kids now? Him, I don't know. I just love him so much, you know. Me, well, that's normal, isn't it? Him, I guess. But do you really feel that against having kids? You don't even have to get pregnant or give birth, we can adopt. I talked about how scary pregnancy and childbirth were for me, especially because of how hard it was for my mom. She almost died giving birth to me due to complications, and she had to have an emergency hysterectomy. Me, that's not the only reason, and you know that. You know how I feel about not knowing if I could love a kid unconditionally. Him, I know, but you learn to love me, right? You can love a child too. Listen, we don't have to agree on this now. We can get married first, and then revisit it. Please don't shut it down immediately. Then he started to cry and hugged me, so I dropped it. But deep down, I knew I couldn't be a mom. I know myself, and honestly, I felt betrayed by him. I thought I'd eventually start resenting him, but I hoped we could get past this. Then he started doing some strange things. He changed his wallpaper to the picture of me holding the baby, he started calling me mama, he wanted to start having unprotected sex, and he even began touching my belly when he thought I was asleep. I have fertility issues that I've never treated because what was the point? My period is irregular, but mostly pain-free, so I never bothered to do anything about it. But when he suggested I go to the doctor to see what's going on with that, I panicked. It felt like he was trying to get me pregnant, and abortion is still illegal in the country we're living in. So I left. I told him my mom fell in the shower and broke her leg, a lie, and I wanted to stay with her for a couple of days to make sure she was okay. He said that was fine, and I waited for him to go to work. Then I grabbed important documents, some clothes, sentimental things, my dog, and I left. I don't know if what I did was right. I'm starting to doubt myself. Maybe he just wanted me to be healthy. Maybe he was just cuddling me or liked that picture. But I can't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He hasn't realized that I left to never coming back. He just questioned why I took the dog, jokingly. I didn't tell anyone, I just told my mom I missed her. Maybe I should go back and pretend everything's okay, but something about him feels off now and just don't know anymore. I'm sorry if this is all over the place and extremely long, I just can't talk to anyone about this and is eating me alive. I probably left some things out of context, so sorry about that too. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I think you are right to leave, you are clearly on different pages about children. Railroading you into motherhood is reckless and deceitful and not the foundations you want to build a marriage on. However, I do think you need to own your decision to leave and tell your fiance that it is over instead of running away. Reply, you're probably right, but I always run away. I can't handle confrontation. I run away instead of moving out like a normal person when I was 18. Does the fiancé know where OOP has left to? Reply, gladly, he was never in my home country. He has a super demanding job, so he doesn't even take vacations, so it's nearly impossible for him to find me. Even if he tries, I'm not even in the capital or near there. Commenter 2, we can get married first and then revisit it. He plans to make it harder for you to escape. Tell him your firm stance on no children. My stepmom didn't love me unconditionally and it fucked me up. Even if you would be a good mother, it's so fucked that he forced you to keep holding the baby. His sister too. Reply, I can't blame the sister, she's a single mom and is doing everything on her own. Her birth had some complication and she really is doing the best she can. Commenter 3, I don't care OP, I would trust your gut. I also don't like his reaction to you with the baby. Is that really what a supportive partner would do in that situation? How is that supposed to make you do anything other than freak out? He sees you struggle and tries to double down. That's not a good start for any situation, but especially when it comes to babies. I know you don't want kids, but I'm not even sure this guy would be a good co-parent judging by how easily he dismissed your concerns overall. Reply, he has a really demanding job. He tried to say he would help a lot, but he is barely home. When is he going to do these things? At 11 p.m., commenter 4, he's trying to baby trap you. If you go back, look into because. Edit, because that you can control, IUD, depot shot, implants, pills, but be careful here, see below comment. Reply, I tried to get the shots and it messed me out so bad, so my doctor told me to stick to the pills since it's a smaller doses or something like that. Did OOP move to her fiance's country for a reason? Reply, yes, I moved to his country for work, but he was never in mine. Update, so, I'm going to try to make this as chronologically accurate and concise as possible. If something is unclear, I'll clarify in the comments. The first thing I did after my last post was get a blood pregnancy test. It was negative. That night, I also spoke to my mom. I wasn't comfortable sharing every single detail, so I left some things out, but she told me she supports me and that I can stay with her for as long as I need. I also talked to my sisters. They admitted they never liked the idea of me dating someone so much older, but they didn't want to push me because they know me. If they did, I'd probably get angry, distance myself, and become even more dependent on him. I apologized for overreacting at everything and assured them that they should never hesitate to tell me if something feels weird or wrong. I called my boss and gave him a more family-friendly version of the story. He was absolutely livid, not only with him but also with me for not telling him sooner. He's like my work dad and was the one who requested I join him. He said he didn't bring me to a foreign country without intending to take care of me. He promised to pull some strings to get me a position at the office in my country since my former position was already filled. He also told me that if I wanted to get my things back I could go back on a Saturday, and he would accompany me. After thinking about it, I decided to go back. It might seem silly, but I had spent a lot of money on K-pop photo cards, albums, mangas, and I didn't want to start my collection from scratch. So, I spent a couple of days with friends and visiting family, realizing how lonely and isolated I felt in a foreign country. Even though it's not that far from home, I knew I could never leave my family like that again. Even my dog seemed happier, spending every afternoon cuddling with my mom. I also visited my father's grave. I've always hated cemeteries and avoided them, but I needed him in that moment. I went alone, brought fresh flowers, cleaned a little, and just sat there talking to him. I told him none of this would have happened if he hadn't passed away. I cried like a lot, then laughed like a crazy person. I ended up staying for about 3 hours, but it felt so healing. I also went to my mom's gynecologist, and she said it was possible to get a tubal ligation, especially considering my health issues. She warned me it could take about 6 months, but I was okay with the wait, so we started the process. I felt so free after that appointment and just so much happier being home. I didn't even think about my ex until he messaged me asking about my mom. I told him she was doing better and that I'd be back on Saturday. I decided to talk to him face to face, since I was already going back to collect my things. On Friday afternoon, my sister lent me her car, and I drove back. It's almost a 12-hour drive, but with breaks, it took about 14 hours. I went straight to my boss's house, and when I arrived around 9 a.m., he asked me to have breakfast with him and his family. Afterward, he and his son came with me to my ex's house to help pack up my things. I even get some of my favorite plants. They made fun of my taste in music, and we finished in about an hour and a half. Afterward, I went to my ex's sister's house. I needed to know if the whole baby incident had been a setup. I knew she didn't work on Saturdays, so I went to her house. Luckily, she was home and invited me in. We sat in awkward silence for a moment until I asked her, "Me, did your brother ask you to make me hold the baby?" Her, "What?" "No, why? What even happened that day?" "When I went downstairs, you weren't there, and he said you got sick and had to leave." "Me, what did he tell you exactly?" Her, "He said you had a panic attack because of fertility issues, and holding the baby was triggering." I told him that didn't sound like you, but he said, "How are you supposed to know more about my fiance than I do?" Then he left. Me, what the actual fuck? Her, "Yeah, he even said you wanted to babysit and go to the park as a couple with the baby, but I told him he was crazy if he thought I'd let him use my baby like that." He got mad at me and didn't speak to me for a couple of days. Then I laughed and explained what actually happened. She was furious, so mad she started crying. She apologized for leaving me with the baby, and I apologized for saying I was going to put the baby on the floor, clarifying that I wasn't actually going to do that. She said she was genuinely considering going low contact with him because his behavior was creepy, and she feared he might do something to the baby. I decided to tell her I was leaving her brother, and she said she understood. We hugged, and she said she'd miss me. I went back to my boss's house to wait for my ex to get home. I told him to text me when he got off work. I was a nervous wreck. I almost threw up. My boss's wife made me chamomile tea and stayed by my side, rubbing my back. I honestly love that woman, the whole family, really. My boss and his son came with me to his apartment. One thing about my boss, he's a softie, but he's huge. He's 195 centimeters, 6 feet 3 inches, and about 130 kilograms, 286 pounds, and his son is basically a carbon copy of him, so I felt pretty safe. When my ex got home, he smiled at me, but then saw my boss and his son. He asked me what was going on. Me, "I'm breaking up with you. You're clearly going through a baby fever phase, and I don't want any part of that." Him, "What do you mean, breaking up? We can't break up. We love each other." Me, "No. You love the idea of me being pregnant with your child and that's not going to happen." He tried to hug me, but my boss grabbed his shoulder and said, "Why don't you sit here with me?" Him, "I can't lose you. I love you. You're my soulmate. I can't live without you. If you leave me, I'll die. I would rather never have kids than lose you. I'll even get a vasectomy, but please stay. What will our families think? You can't just break off the engagement like this." Me, "First of all, this isn't a telenovela, so calm down. Second, I never even told my family we were engaged, and I've already told them we broke up." Him, "What about the dog? You can't just take her." Me, "What dog?" "The dog I've had since I was 17. That's my dog, and she barely tolerates you. Trust me, she's much happier with my mom." He started sobbing, and tried to speak, but I couldn't understand him. My boss's son couldn't chose a worse moment to laugh and asked, "You really didn't tell your family?" Me, "I just never found the right moment, you know." My ex calmed down a little and said he'd never let me go. He still loved me, blah, blah, blah. I felt a little threatened when he said something like, "I'll find you and make you fall in love with me again." I told him, "Good luck with that, but seriously, we're not in a telenovela. Enough with the drama." I gave him the ring back, and he threw it at me, though it didn't hit me. I said, "I hope you find someone who wants kids, but I also hope you get psychological help," and we left. I spent the night at my boss's house, and the next morning, I went back home. I spent the rest of Sunday sleeping because I had a bit of a fever. That's me, the girl who gets emotional fevers. I helped my mom with her business today, and my therapy session is on the 13th. Due to how things went in the office, I'll start again in March. They kind of fired me, to rehired me. Thank you so much for helping me see how crazy this whole situation was. I feel so happy and so light now. I forgot how much I love having my family around. I probably won't update again unless something crazy happens, but yeah, thank you people, especially women, of Reddit. Edit to clarify a couple of things. Some people said and even messaged me to tell me I never loved my fiance and I'm a horrible cold person. I did love him and I think I still do. I had a whole script memorized to talk to him about his sister's baby, he wanting unprotected sex, why I ran away, but I panicked and forgot everything and decided to just be blunt and direct. I didn't take 2 men to make fun of him while I broke up with him. That's actually insane. They come with me because I didn't feel safe with my ex alone. People saying I need therapy, I know I already made the appointment, it's on the 13th. About the tube ligation, it's nothing confirmed yet but I'll try to get a bilateral salpingectomy. Someone here actually let me know what that was. I wanted a hysterectomy but that's basically impossible according to my doctor. Some people told me this sounds fake, I wish but no is real, maybe it's the way I worded or because English is not my first language I don't care but there's that. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, this can't be real, families like your bosses don't exist. They're too supportive, think they might adopt me. On a serious note, I'm so happy for you. You knew what you wanted and owned it like a real badass. Not liking confrontation isn't something to be ashamed of, and I hope you're proud of yourself and who you've become. I'm confident your dad would be. Reply, he kind of adopts anyone who starts working with him. Commenter 2, your boss's son had me cackling. I'd be careful about your ex though, sounds like the start of a stalker behavior. Reply, my mom has security cameras already so I'm feeling confident also I don't think he's just going to leave everything to follow me not even knowing where I am. Commenter 3, the fact that a 26-year-old woman can opt into a tubal in your country with very little work is so mind-blowing to me. I know that's not the right takeaway from this but dang. Reply, it's not that easy of a process I have to make appointments with a general doctor, I already have my gynecologist, then a licensed psychologist needs to give me an okay and because I have POS I need an appointment with an endocrinologist or something like that, it's long but is doable. Commenter 4, I'm curious, is there a legal way to keep an eye on him in his country? Also, is he active on social media and tends to share everything, from like when he gets up and then walks to work as he picks his nose? His responses are making me a bit uneasy. It seems like he's genuinely clueless about the consequences of his actions and how they've affected you. Reply, I don't think they can really just watch him, without cause, but my boss's wife advised me to go to a police station before going out of the country again to let them know I was leaving willingly just in case, and no he doesn't post much on social media just big events, birthday anniversaries, and that kind of stuff. Stories number 14, I, 20M, finally got the courage to confront my lecturer, 30SF. All my problems began about 2 months ago when she accused me of closing a dog's tail in his crate door. I'm wanting to get a degree in an animal-related field. What happened was that the dog's tail slipped in between the bars and must have somehow given the illusion that I'd trapped his tail. I definitely did not and the dog did not make any noises. She saw me and went, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? I looked at her so confused like, Then she wandered off. It only registered later that she must have thought I'd trapped the dog's tail. Anyway since then she has been down marking all my work. Before I was getting A and B+. Now I'm getting C and E. We did an experiment where my 34-year-old brother helped me out with an essay, he said it's definitely worth an A if not A+. Well lo and behold last Friday we got our results back, I got a D and all my class buddies were getting As and BS and CS. So now I knew for sure it was personal. Over the weekend I had a bit of Dutch courage and messaged her personally, telling her that I have evidence to support my claims, wrote it down in a diary, kept all my work. That I know she's holding a grudge on me about the incident which didn't even happen. I also asked why she did not hold me back after class to explain her concerns as it took me a couple of hours later to realize what she meant when she was rude to me. I wish dogs could speak, he'd vouch for me. I said she can possibly be sabotaging my future career due to making false assumptions and if the issue is not rectified within the end of the week I'm going to higher powers. I know she's read my message and she hasn't been in at all this week. Today is the 3rd day without her. What does this mean? Should I see management about this or just wait it out? It's worrying me greatly as this one make-believe incident may end up sabotaging my career and costing me a few grand. Also before anyone asks, yes this lecturer marks our work. TLDR. Getting bad marks on my work because lecturer accused me of closing a dog's tail in a crate door which never happened. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I understand you have been frustrated, but in my opinion you handled this really indelicately and it's likely going to backfire on you. Instead of approaching her openly, you sent an inebriated message accusing her, rightfully or not, of holding a grudge and threatening to talk to her superiors before even getting a response from her. For the future, taking things to a confrontational place right off the bat is not a good way to resolve issues and usually makes people even more defensive and combative. Reply. Okay, so should I go and see the superiors today regardless? The reason I messaged her is to give her the initiative to fix the problem before I went to them. Commenter 2. She must have thought, did you ever have a conversation about this? I knew for sure it was personal. This is when you go to your professor and ask them why you got the marks that you did, that you feel your work deserves better but that maybe you just don't understand. You ask for a reasonable explanation. When you don't get that reasonable explanation, you go to the department head. Or you go to the department head from the start. I had a bit of Dutch courage and messaged her personally. Be careful to not sabotage yourself. Reply. I know she thought I trapped the dog's tail, as another buddy of mine heard her muttering about that poor dog's tail as she was storming off in his direction. I found out a few days after the incident as I asked about 4 people who were within a few feet of me if they remembered anything about it. To be honest, when it was me doing the essays alone, at first I thought I may have just not been understanding the subject properly, but I had people from class review it and some said it was even better than theirs. And then after my brother helped me out, it became obvious it was all related to that one incident, as that's exactly when my marks started heading south. Commenter 3. As someone who has worked in a university and taught classes, I caution you to temper your expectations in regards to how this will turn out for you. I would also like to point out that I also asked why she did not hold me back after class to explain her concerns, as it took me a couple of hours later to realize what she meant when she was rude to me. Is not her responsibility. She has no obligation to explain why you're doing poorly. The onus is on you to take the initiative and, respectfully, address it with her. You should have reached out the first time after you received a poor grade, not continue to do what you're doing before. Your friend's grades are not relevant to this discussion, and frankly neither your lecturer or her supervisors are going to care about them. Reply. Surely if you thought someone had harmed an animal you'd have called them back after class and not let the wound fester. I tried to speak with her, but she was unbelievably short with me and brushed me off. Commenter 4. Why do you assume she didn't check the animal after you left? Did you actually reach out to her about your grades? Did you ask for feedback? Are there on-campus resources to help with the subject matter, and did you avail yourself of them? If you did any of these things, do you have an actual record of doing so? Please note, I'm not asking you these questions to be difficult. I'm asking you because these are the first questions you're going to be asked by her supervisors when you meet with them. Reply. It would have been a while before she checked on him, as soon as she thought she saw it happen she stormed off and muttered something about that poor dog's tail. Honestly, afterwards when I realized she thought I'd trapped the dog's tail, I didn't think it would be such a big deal. I didn't do it, so I didn't worry about it until I noticed my grade slipping directly after said incident. I am not aware of any resources available to me on campus that deal with these things. I looked back on old messages and found the date of where she brushed me off, so I'll add that to my evidence list. She told me to reread the class handbook, and that was that. Yes, I did reread it, but was confused as to why she asked me to. On why OOP had his brother help him. My brother has had excellent grades his whole life and won scholarships, so I trust him 100%. I was confused when I saw my first poor grade as IMO. I thought it was one of the best papers I'd done so far this year. Then when the next one came through and the one after that, I picked up a pattern. I tried speaking to her in class, but she is unbelievably short with me, whereas she isn't with my buddies. OOP added in the comments. Okay. To be honest, I just thought she'd read the message, think on it, then apologize, genuine or not, and then fix my marks for me. Then we could just sweep it under the rug. In my mind I just thought it was decent to give the person who could possibly be costing my career and money the chance to make things right before they got worse. OOP added a small update to the post. Update. Have just been to an appointment with a superior. They were extremely understanding and I showed all my evidence. Yes, my 2 class buddies helped out. Update. I ended up seeing the superiors and informing them of everything that had gone on. They were actually really understanding. One of the superiors took my essays overnight to review them, and from the way he worded his conversation afterwards it was clear that he did not think they were worth such low grades. I am going to submit them for a regarding. He was glad I had brought this to his attention, and although he could understand my frustrations, he said I should have come to see him first, instead of messaging the lecturer on Facebook. He also implied that it's best if the Facebook group is removed. Amazingly, I was also told that she is only lecturing one more class until she is changing positions. I am extremely relieved. I also managed to get a part-time position in a vet clinic, which will help me greatly. So things are looking up and things weren't as bad as they were made out to be. TLDR, the outcome to this situation was not bad at all. Stories number 15. Aita for kicking my friend out of my engagement party after he proposed to his girlfriend there. I, 26F, and my fiance, Jake, 27M, had our engagement party last weekend. We've been together 3 years, and he proposed last month. My best friend, Lisa, 26F, offered to help plan the party at a rooftop bar, super chill, just close friends and fam. Everything was perfect until, midway through the night, Lisa's boyfriend, Mark, 28M, grabbed the mic during the toast. I thought he was gonna say congrats or whatever, but he starts this whole speech about how love is in the air and suddenly drops to one knee in front of Lisa. Everyone starts screaming, phones out, the whole thing. Lisa's crying, nodding yes, and the crowd goes wild. I'm standing there holding my champagne like, this is my engagement party. Jake's just awkwardly patting my back. Once the clapping dies down, I straight up ask Mark, dude, seriously? You couldn't pick literally any other day? He shrugged and said, come on, it's not like you guys need the spotlight all night. Exact words, I lost it. Told him to leave, and when Lisa tried to defend him, you too. Bye. They left, but now half my friends are on my phone saying I overreacted and should have been happy for them. Lisa texted me, you ruined what was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. But like, hello. This was my moment. My mom says I was justified, but my brother says I looked jealous and petty. Jake's staying neutral but thinks Mark was out of line, so, Aita for kicking them out. Should I have just let them have their moment? Used fake names. Stories number 16. I ghosted a guy after our first date on Valentine's Day because I felt disrespected for a joke test. Went on a date with a guy recently. We are both 30 years old, 30F and 30M. I've been very clear about wanting a guy who's a grown-up because at 30 I don't want to teach or change a guy. He should have basic etiquettes in order. He made a remark about women being bad at using a map and navigation while driving. And then when we were discussing hobbies I told him that I used to play chess as a kid. I played in some tournaments as a kid and won a few trophies too. He then asked me what are the corner pieces on a chessboard called. I thought he was making a joke and laughed it off. Then he asked me again and I told him it's very disrespectful for him to ask me that since I just told him that I used to play as a kid. He ultimately made me answer his question and it felt so disrespectful. Everyone has some hidden misogyny, probably even I do. But at least try to act nice on the first date. Anyway, I lost all interest in the date after that. I don't care if that was a joke or whatever. He said, oh, you do know stuff. Lots of people don't. He clearly meant women. I'm a decently accomplished and educated woman for the record, definitely more educated than him by the way. I've ghosted him. He texted me a bunch of times and was upset that he can't believe I've ghosted him despite him being so nice to me. Stories number 17. Neighbor wouldn't quit revving his engine. I made his backyard all but unusable until he quit. Last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold her house and moved away. The people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we'll call Pete, owns some sort of a new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler. And he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evenings literally 5 days a week when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during the summer. It is relentless. This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house doing the same thing but louder because it's a 55 miles per hour speed limit. You can hear it for miles. And he has friends over regularly in the backyard, and they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights, revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in the HOA group, and a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Pete's exact response: I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard, and the streets are public. Well, I didn't like that, so here's what I did next, with a little context. Our subdivision has about 150 houses on about 300 acres. It's big. Most of the properties in this subdivision are between 1 to 4 acres in size. I have a 3-acre corner. Due to an agreed-upon land split sale 10 years ago between the HOA, all neighbors within the vicinity, and the former owners, my next-door neighbor's house is on the smallest piece of property in the subdivision at 0.45 acres. I've attached a stunning artistic representation here. Note the green borders, those are all 10-foot privacy fences that are white vinyl. And note the little pentagon shape, that comes in handy later. The only side of Pete's house not bordered by somebody else's privacy fence is the side that my house is on. Well, I know from 15 years of living here that any time I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as it would literally fill her backyard with smoke if ever the wood had even a hint of moisture in it. So, I moved my fire pit about a dozen years ago to the other side of my house and towards the road so that I could be a good neighbor. And you know, Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noise reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. That's where the little pentagon is in the diagram above. It took me a single weekend to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot, and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. I just need to wait until Pete had people over. I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over, it was a nice day, and so I started the fire. Got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood I could. And about 10 minutes later, Pete and all of his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so they all went in. They came back out a little later, I added more wet, nasty wood. They went in again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clipping to keep it going overnight. The next day, still smoldering. Still smelling awful. I put out a Facebook post on the HOA website that let people know I'd be continuing to utilize my fire pit as often as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours saying their clippings were all mine. I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms, and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard, so I would hear the dogs scramble, go out, and add more clippings. After about 3 weeks, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She very politely informed me that her hair would smell like a campfire if she went into her backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. He said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They asked me if I could ease back with the fire because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. I looked at him and his wife, and I said that it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same "I'll do what I want in my yard" thought process as Pete does. I have a right to enjoy my yard. I looked at Pete dead in the eyes and said, "And I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete?" He looked at me like I scratched his favorite CD. He knew what I was doing. And his wife looked at him and it just dawned on her. She said she gets it, and we won't hear the Mustang anymore. I said, thanks. I took a gamble and put the fire out right after that. It was the right call. I haven't talked to them much since. I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't heard the Mustang since, either. Stories number 18. AITH for telling our roommate his kids can't come here anymore, then giving him notice when he refused. A year ago my husband, 31M, and I, 29F, decided to let an old friend of ours. Let's name him Adam, 30M, move in as his living situation won't allow his children there, all boys ages 7, 4, and 1. We have a daughter, age 6, so we felt for his situation. Adam would get the whole basement with his own full-sized fridge, the top floor is ours and the main floor was shared common area. Adam was told that common areas are kept clean by all parties, and everyone is expected to clean their half of the house themselves. We asked Adam why his kids weren't welcomed at his old place. He said that 2 of the 3 kids are not his. He was with a girl for 2 years on and off and had a baby with her. However, the people he lived with don't like him playing daddy to the oldest when they aren't his kids. My husband and I found it very strange, but we agreed 2 nights a week was okay with us. The first few months were okay, despite having to remind him about cleaning and the smell that was coming from the basement. Until one morning I woke up, and stood there in the horror when I found raw eggs and shells all over the house. I screamed so loud, Adam came running. After seeing what happened, he investigated, then came back up to apologize. His excuse was he overslept and the oldest admitted that he went into my fridge and couldn't help himself when he seen the big 30 pk of eggs. From there on, the 2 oldest kept sneaking upstairs early in the morning while Adam slept. Breaking things, stealing things, eating things, and even started going to the top floor where we live. Each time Adam would give an apology and promise to do better to keep them under control. My final straw was when I woke up to my brand new Costco pack of ice cream sandwiches half-eaten, melted and smushed into multiple surfaces of the house. It started with a lock on the basement door, so Adam could keep the kids downstairs while he slept. Then we had to remove the lock on the bathroom door because they started locking themselves in and peeing on all surfaces of the bathroom. We put a baby gate up to keep them out of the living room because they kept stealing and breaking things, which they ripped down twice and I ended up screwing it into the wall instead. Present day, our house so locked down that his kids are only able to be in the basement. The smell from the basement is so strong, like sour milk and vomit, people refuse to come here anymore and Adam keeps claiming there is no smell. Adam has never used a single cleaning product to clean except baby wipes. The downstairs furniture is all coated in some gross sticky film. There is paint missing from the walls and some holes. When we found out I was pregnant, we decided Adam needed to leave for obvious reasons. We were planning on waiting a little as we just wanted him to move before the baby is born and I am only 2 months along. But then Thursday happened. I was home alone, so I decided to take advantage of it, blasted some music and started cleaning. An hour later, I went to throw in a load of laundry. I grabbed the bottle of detergent, it was covered in pee. Pee was everywhere. The laundry tub was clogged with pee, on the floor, side of the washer, now all over my hands, everywhere. I cleaned it up, put my load in and called my husband crying. My husband was pissed and messaged our group chat saying what happened and how the 2 oldest kids can't come here any longer. Adam apologizes and says how sorry he is that I cleaned it and that it upset me. Then he stated how those are his children and it's unfair to say they can't come here and he is going to bring them anyways. Long story short, I snapped. I told him I put a lock on the laundry door and he has 60 days to move out. Adam just apologized and took his notice. All our family and friends are happy we are kicking him out because the smell is so bad. Yet some feel we were attacking the kids for being different and stating that locking them out of rooms was insensitive. So I need to know Aita Reddit. I did not expect this post to blow up like it did and I appreciate all the comments. But I would like to address the comments about calling CPS. They had a case open for over a year and it was recently closed. Family services didn't care about the state of the basement, unfortunately. Edit 2, as I said, the kids are only here twice a week and this was happened in a full year span. That's roughly 104 days. Some weekends they were fine, some they yell talk really loud or having screaming contest non-stop, not a hurt or in trouble scream. It's literally like one of those screams you do if someone asks how loud you can scream, and other weekends have been obvious hell. This whole thing has been a huge build-up, not one after another events. It's been almost 2 months with no huge out-of-pocket issues until the laundry room incident. Stories number 19. My boyfriend hit me for the first time tonight. I can't even process the feelings I'm having. I had a 3-day weekend from work this week. I let him know and he said he would take it off too, so we both had it off. Yesterday he starts setting up and even to play magic with some friends, but the only time they can do it is Monday, today, or Tuesday. I need the car for Tuesday for an appointment I'd already booked and paid for. So while today wasn't ideal, it was what it was. They set everyone up and he leaves a little after 5 p.m. to get there early and set things up. We chat and check in a few times over the night and everything is cool. I told him what I was doing and some success I had there, and he said he was having fun. All good. Around 11 p.m. he says he's headed home. I hear the garage door open, but he doesn't come in right away. After a few, he comes in and it's obvious he is very drunk. He says, "Yeah, I'm a little tipsy." I didn't say much and continued watching the show I was finishing, but I did feel a little upset that he drove while that drunk from across town. I would have preferred him just take an Uber and avoid the risk. After the show ends I get ready for bed, but when we're laying in bed he says something like, "How can I bridge the gap here?" And I'm not sure what he's really meaning, so I ask and he's just mumbling about how he can tell I'm upset. And so I mention how I'd prefer if he didn't drive drunk, risking damage to our car but also the possibility of him getting hurt. He just starts saying, "Oh," over and over. I'm staring to get upset because it's midnight, he's drunk, he's getting more upset, and I really just wanted a relaxing 3-day weekend. I just want to go to sleep. He starts going on about how, can he not just go out with friends, you do this every time, now I understand these chains I'm under, and a ton of other stuff about how he's not allowed to have friends. I clarify with him that I'm upset about the drunk driving, and remind him that he bridged this conversation to start and I just want to sleep. He again kept going on about how he's not allowed to have friends, and starts yelling. I yell back that it's not about the friends. He explodes and starts yelling and slamming his fists near him on the bed and then he turns towards me and suddenly he's hitting me instead of the bed. I put my hands up and start screaming and he just keeps smacking me right in middle of the back and shoulders. It's burning and I'm terrified. I never thought he would hit me. I've felt him struggle with anger before and we've had a lot of issues with lies and broken promises, but we never escalate beyond arguments with raised voices. It's always taken a toll on me, but I never in a million years expected him to hit me, and more than once while I screamed and cowered on the bed. I called 911 and they arrested him. Even though I felt fear and was terrified, I feel bad that I got him in trouble. Why? He hurt me. There aren't any marks besides some vague redness but it still burns 2 hours later. I have no idea what is happening. We have a mortgage together. How can I trust him to not do this again? Edit. Thank you all so much for both your kindness and words of wisdom. I'm still facing the denial and sunk cost head on, but I can't let this happen again. Violence isn't a mistake, no matter how much I want to downplay it to make this feel more normal. It was a flurry of hard slaps this time, but that's an escalation already, so I have to understand that another escalation is not only possible, but likely. I've talked with my mom, who also faced a lot of DV during my childhood, and she has been supportive and echoes the same thing many of you have said, it never gets better. She told me about how she wishes she left because she might have been happier instead of depressed for years. Like many of you, she suggested selling the house and moving on with my life. I'm looking into my options. This is all so much and so heavy. But the feeling in the pit of my stomach when I realized he was actually hitting me tells me that this is over and can't be repaired. I'm just going to keep trying to focus on that and the future instead of how hard this all is right now. I appreciate all of your comments and honesty. I'm sorry that I cannot reply to them all, but I promise I've read them and taken them to heart. Stories number 20. My home office hid their Christmas party from us. We just found out that our home office had a swanky Christmas party for their entire office and only select members of my branch office. The worst part of all of this is that the people who were invited and attended from my office kept it a secret from those who were not invited. 3 out of the 7 people in our office were not invited. The people who were invited were salaried and generally higher up on the food chain than the 3 of us non-invitees are. However, everyone at the other office was invited regardless of their position in the company. Oh, and their spouses were invited too. We found out a couple days later, when it came out through the grapevine. One of those invited was our immediate supervisor office manager, and he has never said a word. Should we call him on it? We really feel lousy that we weren't invited, and it makes us feel like we're not appreciated or valued as employees. Should we say something? Update: our home office hid their Christmas party from us. Third letter at the link, December 24, 2014, almost a year later. Well, things went from bad to worse over the year, and in the beginning of October, our home office HR person, VP of Teapot Service, and the Teapot Service branch manager walked into our office one morning unannounced, called the whole office into a meeting, and said that we were closed immediately and to pack our things and leave the premises. By the time we got back to our desks, our phones were shut off and our PCs were locked. I was only provided with 5 weeks of severance after 10 years of service. While they were firing us, I asked them why they weren't providing any transition time. We had very large accounts that were quite complex and labor-intensive, and they said, "We'll figure it out." The whole situation confirmed that I was indeed working for a bunch of complete jerks the last 10 years. Good news is that I found a job quickly, the pay is substantially higher, will have more flexibility and find the work really interesting, which starts in a few weeks. So, the whole situation was a foreshadowing of what was to become of our office 10 months later. I'm so happy I'm out of there. ETA, a sharp-eyed user on the Discord pointed out this comment from OOP. OP3 here, as one person posted, yes, the clients were quite upset and not happy about being sent to a service center that didn't know anything about them. I was personal friends with many of my clients, I worked with most of them 10 years, and they were shocked and horrified that our company would do that. They were also upset because the service center was being staffed with recent college graduates that had no teapot service experience whatsoever and they can't get an answer the first time they call. It's always, "I don't know, I'll have to get back to you." Certainly not the level of expertise that they enjoyed when our office was open and staffed with experienced individuals that knew their accounts inside and out. I've also talked to some of my former co-workers in this office and they said the workload is unbearable, and that there was no plan when they let us go. They were already down several people because of high turnover, and the new people they are hiring have no experience. Stories number 21. Aita for refusing to help my in-laws financially after realizing they're taking advantage of me and my wife. So, I, 32F, have kinda reached my breaking point with my in-laws and now apparently I'm the bad guy for it. My wife, 34F, and I have been helping her parents out financially for years. We've covered medical bills, helped with their mortgage, and whenever there was some emergency they couldn't handle, we stepped in. We never really thought twice about it because, well, they're family, and my wife felt like it was our responsibility. But then I started noticing a pattern. Every time we gave them money, suddenly they had cash to go out to fancy restaurants, buy expensive designer clothes, or splurge on stuff they absolutely did not need. At first, I tried to brush it off, maybe they just needed a little joy in their lives or whatever. But it kept happening. And the thing is, it was always right after we helped them. The final straw was last month. My MIL called my wife crying about overdue medical bills and how they were struggling. We sent them a good chunk of money because, obviously, that's important. A few days later, I see MIL posting on Facebook about how they're having a much-needed getaway at some luxury resort. I showed my wife and she immediately started making excuses for them. Maybe it was a gift, maybe they used a different credit card, maybe we were overthinking it. But the more I looked into it, the clearer it became. There were no overdue medical bills. They straight up lied to us so they could go on a fancy vacation. That was it for me. I told my wife we're done funding their lifestyle. If they can afford designer clothes, they can afford their own damn house. My wife was hesitant at first. She's always felt responsible for them, but even she had to admit this was messed up. So we told them we weren't giving them any more money. And all hell broke loose. MIL called us ungrateful and sobbed about how we're abandoning them. FIL said I was manipulating my wife. And then they dragged other relatives into it, who are now guilt-tripping us, saying things like, "But they're family, and, you have the money, why wouldn't you help?" Now my wife is second-guessing everything, and I feel like the villain. But I can't keep lighting money on fire for people who refuse to act like responsible adults. Aita. Stories number 22. Aita for telling my birth siblings to fuck off and leave me alone and I don't care about their stupid fucking parents. I, 20s, was adopted as an infant. Actually I was found in an alley and when my birth family didn't come forward to claim me and nobody knew who I was adopted. But I was an infant at the time thankfully so no long foster care experience. I was placed without anything to keep me warm, in a low visibility area and there was no signs I was lovingly placed. It basically looked like I was thrown away like trash. I've seen some old newspaper clippings about it. The story was told to me gradually throughout my childhood. My parents were always open about my adoption though, I never felt othered. My family, parents, siblings and extended family, were my family even if I was the only non-bio kid in the family. I was loved, I was treasured even and I had a great life, but the circumstances surrounding my adoption meant some stuff was unclear. Medical history being the biggest thing. I never really cared. But I got engaged a few months ago and my fiance and I want children and seeing the health stuff in my family has made me realize I have no idea if I could pass anything on to my future kids. After thinking it over I did 23andMe genetic testing but I did it wrong and I also mistakenly added myself to be found. I realized quickly after my results came in but by then it was too late and 2 birth siblings found me. They're older. My birth parents had 5 kids before me. They all know about me and want to know me. The birth siblings started off somewhat reasonable but when I made it clear I didn't to hear my birth parents' story they flipped a switch. They said how much their parents regretted giving me away and how they would have come forward but they didn't want to get into trouble for abandoning me like they did. They believed I owed their parents and them the chance to get it all out there and to build a relationship. I stood my ground and I blocked them but they followed me to social media and they insisted we're family and I should be kinder to them and their parents. I was told it's not like I'm just a half-sibling and I'm the baby who was missing. They sent messages that were trying to make me feel bad for their parents, specifically their mom. And it pissed me off. After almost 3 months of dealing with them finding ways around my blocking them I told them to fuck off and leave me alone and how I don't care about their stupid fucking parents. I had to delete my account because it was just random account after random account and I couldn't block them fast enough in their outrage over what I said. They told me their parents didn't deserve that. Stories number 23. This girl got revenge on her bullies, my grandmother was one of them. I think about this story from time to time. My grandmother was 1950s mean girl. Regina George level. I can attest she never grew out of it and was actually worse to family. But her and her friends were baffled by this girl all the way to their deathbeds. In high school there was a girl with terrible acne. I guess it was so bad that she was an easy target. Well, they bullied her from freshman year to senior year. They had a school break, spring break, and on that Thursday or Friday had decided to tell this girl that if she washed her face in cow pee, her acne would go away. I think she lived on a farm and had cows. Real creative high schoolers. Well, come Monday, over a week later, this girl had perfectly clear skin. Apparently she had clear skin till graduation and suddenly had confidence. Enough confidence that no matter what they asked or how they harassed this girl, she never told them how she got clear skin. However, she got under their skin for 60 years. My grandmother sometimes would remember and would be pissed off for days. Petty revenge for a lifetime. All she had to do was move on with her life. Makes me giggle. I hope whoever that girl was she had a fulfilling life. Stories number 24. AIO husband is emotionally abusing our baby. I work nights and hubby watches our 1.5 years at home. Tonight, she woke up crying. He got in bed with her and she still would wake up periodically and cry. He left her alone crying hysterically so I called him. Told him to go in and be with her so she doesn't feel abandoned and neglected by her dad when mom's not there. Mondays are hard on her after being with me all weekend. We can't sleep. Well, he went into the room saying, "Shut up," repeatedly and pointing his finger at her. Told her nobody will be nice to her. He sat on the side of the bed with his back against it and said nothing else while she cried harder. He would occasionally mock her crying. Her crying went on for about an hour. He finally got in bed with her and started being nice and sweet. What do I do? I wanted to throw up. I started crying. I am the only nurse in the nursing home and can't leave easily. I want to quit and just work as needed. He used to belittle me and put me down every day but he's gotten better. He gave me a small push tonight after I didn't give him attention. He's like a sour patch. I love him but this is too much. Stories number 25. Want to party in the hotel room next to me? Enjoy your wake-up call. A few years ago I was staying in a hotel room in suburban Detroit. I was a Navy reservist on my drill weekend. On Saturday night, this couple shows up in the adjoining room with a buddy and their probably 6-year-old kid. I think nothing of it until it's about 10 p.m. and 2 more people show up. Now it's a party. They're being obnoxious, so I knock on the door and ask them to keep it down, that I have to work in the morning. We're not even being loud. How can you hear us? Bro, I'm in the room next to you, there's a door between our rooms. I can hear you clearly. Yeah, okay. Door closes. 45 minutes later, they're just as loud as they had been. I call the front desk. I hear the neighbor's phone ring. He hangs up and says, if he thinks we're loud, wait till later. They continue to party and are obviously being loud on purpose to spite me. Eventually I got tired enough and fell asleep at about 1 a.m. I wake up at 5:30 to get ready for work. Petty revenge, I plug the alarm clock into the socket near the adjoining door, put the speaker against the door they can't open. I put the radio between stations, crank the volume to max, and set the alarm for 5 minutes after I leave the room. I picture them panicking and furious at not being able to stop it. I would have given anything to see their reaction. Stories number 26. Aita for waking up my partner after he falls asleep to organize himself and his belongings. I, 24F, live with my fiance, 23M, quick background info, he is diagnosed with ADHD and is taking meds for it. He's recently acquired a new physical job which has him on his feet 9 hours a day. I personally have just finished study and am looking for a job. Something that really bothers is that he can never ever get into a routine and then gets mad about the consequences of that. His current routine is that he gets home from work, sits down and scrolls on his phone. He will help with dinner and then he's back to video gaming or on his phone. Then he will have a late night snack and just pass out on the bed. He doesn't charge his phone, get changed out of his work clothes, brush his teeth, wash his dishes or anything. He simply passes out and then the next day is upset when his phone is flat, clothes are smelly and he's tired. Lately, I've been waking him up just after he passes out to tell him to get up, get changed, charge his phone and set his alarms. Is this a dick move? It's so frustrating to have to hear him complain about these things that he's only doing to himself. I've spent months putting his phone on charge for him, washing his dishes and his clothes and I'm almost about to leave because I feel like a mother picking up after her child. So how I've been putting it on him and he's only getting more mad at me, so am I the asshole? He works and I don't, so there's a feeling that maybe I should just be grateful. Thanks Reddit. Stories number 27. My wife cheated on me 3 years ago. What to do anymore boys? I'm new here. Forgive me for not knowing the ways. But it's true. My wife cheated on me late 2021, less than 6 months after we got married. We have a child together born mid-2020. We have officially divorced as of 2 weeks ago today and I still feel awful. I have no ambition. I have no reason to wake up in the morning, other than when I have the child. Work sucks, life sucks. I know what I could do to feel better about myself and I think after all this time part of it might be that I need to put myself back out there but I can't muster up the self-discipline to do the hard things and get my own shit in order enough to feel good enough about myself to put myself back out there. I'm an alcoholic at his point. I'm young enough to easily make a change and still set myself and child up for the future and to one day be happy but I can't do it. I know that she isn't the answer to my happiness or lack thereof, but I'm having a hard time finding a reason to do anything more than exist in the most meaningless capacity. Stories number 28. A junior high teacher kicked me out of her class for having cramps, so I never went back to her class. I apologize if this doesn't fit this sub, I had a hard time deciding where to put it. Ever since I hit puberty, I've had incredibly painful menstrual cramps. It wasn't unusual for me to be completely incapacitated for several hours at least once during each cycle. It was rare for them to hit me during school, but when they did my teachers usually understood. Usually. My last year in junior high, I was assigned to a teacher, Mrs. R, who was easily the #1 favorite of every kid in school. I'd heard a lot about her in previous years, so I was really hopeful when I started her class. Well, it was pretty easy to figure out why she was so popular. She gave out chocolate constantly, and described herself as a chocoholic. I don't know if it was because I was overweight, or because it was obvious I wasn't giving in to the bribe, but she took an immediate dislike to me. The feeling became mutual very quickly. I managed to get through most of the year with her with average grades, figuring I'd just tough everything out until I graduated. But one day, the cramps hit me just before lunch. I spent the entire lunch period laying in the nurse's office, with little to no relief, since anything the nurse had wasn't strong enough to handle the kind of cramps I'd get. Mrs. R's class was after lunch, and only a couple doors down the hall from the nurse, so I managed to limp my way down into her classroom, since I didn't want to get in trouble for being absent. Yay, US school system. I figured I'd be able to just sit in the back of the class and hide, since we were watching videos for some dumb project she'd assigned us. Unfortunately, I picked the desk that she parked the projector next to. FML. I was hoping if I was quiet, she'd just leave me alone, but every time I so much as slouched, she snapped at me to sit up straight. I don't know how long this went on, but I ultimately just asked quietly if I could lay down in the back of the class. She angrily snapped, "If you're in that much pain, just go to the nurse." I took the chance and got the hell out of there. I was told later by a friend, who'd been in the room, that after the door closed behind me, she muttered, "I pooped out 4 kids, don't you talk to me about cramps." Needless to say, I was upset. As soon as I got home, I told my dad what happened, and he was livid. I'm going to have him write out the next part, as he has a better memory for what happened than I do. Dad here. A little background, I was the stay-home parent in the family. Dealing with stuff like this was part of the job and I didn't mind because, when it comes to my kids, I have a protective streak a light year long. I contacted the school and complained. I said I wanted an appointment with her supervisor, the vice principal, the following day. Not an hour later, this guy calls me, with the teacher in his office, and he wants to discuss it now over the phone. I said, "I don't know who you're used to dealing with, but you're not going to blindside me 2-on-1 like this out of nowhere." "No, we will not discuss it right now. You can make the appointment I asked for." He said, "I understand that your daughter was in pain." I said, "I told you we are not discussing it right now. If you're not willing to make an appointment and insist on trying to sandbag me like this, we have nothing more to discuss. Tell the teacher my daughter will not attend her class again." He tried to talk about grades and I said, I dare her, to punish my daughter for this. "Please do. See what happens." She skipped that class for the rest of the term, and never got in trouble for it. When I saw her grade I was ready to rumble again, but she said, no. So I deferred to her wishes. She can explain why. In summary, my philosophy is, only be as big an asshole as the occasion requires, but don't be afraid to be as big an asshole as the occasion requires. And back to me, thanks to my papa bear of a dad, I spent the rest of that year sitting in the hallway outside my favorite class of the day. I would read, sketch, and just in general relax for an hour until the bell rang. At the end of the year, I had to laugh when I got my report card. F for non-attendance, in Mrs. R's class. It was the only F I've ever gotten on a report card, and I'm proud of it. To answer any questions, no, I haven't been diagnosed with anything like PCOS or endometriosis. We found a birth control that kept the pain manageable, and only recently started looking into a diagnosis again. We suspect PCOS, but need to do more tests. Either way, I'm hoping we'll have an answer soon. Edit. I think I should clarify that this happened in 2005, when I was 15. I'm going to be 35 here soon. Basically the only reason I never got tested to see if I have PCOS or endometriosis was because once I found a birth control that made the pain either bearable or entirely gone, it didn't feel necessary. Welp, now I know better. Stories number 29. My dad refuses to work a stable job, lies about being a lawyer, and blames us for his life. I'm so lost. Hey everyone, I'm 20 years old and really confused about my dad. Since I was little, he always said he was a lawyer, but as I got older, that changed to him studying to become one. I believed him because he had tons of law books and always seemed to be doing homework. I even told my friends he was a lawyer, and they'd assume we were rich, but that couldn't be further from the truth. My dad constantly told us we had to become lawyers or doctors so people would respect us. He put so much time into driving us to extra classes and pushing us academically. You'd think he was the perfect dad, but now I feel like he was just trying to force his own dreams onto us, like we were just characters in some story he wanted to tell. As I grew older, things stopped adding up. By the time I was 15, I started questioning why he still wasn't done with law school. People would ask me, "Is your dad a lawyer now?" and I never had an answer. We're a big family, 8 kids total, so we really depend on him. My mom once told me she's pretty sure he never finished law school and just kept taking random classes so we wouldn't question him. He recently showed us a paper from a university saying he was finally done, but he never clarified what he was done with. My mom and older brother are convinced it was just another course, and my brother even saw a letter saying he dropped out. The weirdest part. Everyone else, including his friends, calls him a lawyer too, and he never corrects them. He's in his late 40s now, and it's like he's committed to keeping up this lie. Now, here's the thing, my dad refuses to get a regular job. We all know he's not really studying anymore, but he also won't work to support his 8 kids. He's currently a delivery guy, and the only reason he does that is because he doesn't want a boss. He wants to work whenever he feels like it, but the money is barely enough, and it's inconsistent. Worst part. He doesn't even use that money for the family. He just stashes it in his safe, and we survive on government assistance, which also isn't enough. To make it worse, he won't let my mom work either, so we're all just stuck. Another strange thing is that he spends a lot of time talking on the phone with random people. I don't know if he does it to keep himself busy when he's not delivering, but it's weird. A lot of the time, we don't even know where he is. Whenever he works, he wears his delivery uniform, but most times when he goes out, he's not even in his work clothes. He claims he takes his classes online now because he's done, so where is he going? The reason I know he's not doing anything important is because he usually comes back after 1 to 2 hours, sometimes 2 to 3, and then just sits around the rest of the day. Other times, he's just home all day doing nothing. I don't understand why he refuses to build any kind of financial stability for us. One time, we were talking about money, which is literally the only thing he ever talks about, and he jokingly said, "You guys are the ones who ruined my life." But I know he meant it because his face turned serious right after. So, is his unwillingness to support us and giving us the bare minimum just his resentment showing through? I feel lost. Stories number 30. Am I the asshole for not wanting to compromise with my husband and our daughter's middle name? When my husband and I first found out we were going to be parents, we decided that if it was a boy he would get to choose the name, and if it was a girl I would choose the name. Well, now that it's a girl and I want to choose the names as we had agreed on, he now wants to choose the middle name. At first I was okay with it until he chose his mom's name. My issue with him wanting his mom's name as the middle name is that when we told his parents we were having a baby, they specifically said they hoped for a boy and didn't want a girl. I don't feel my daughter should have his mom's name when she didn't want a girl in the first place. Her reason for not wanting a girl is because she believes women have harder lives than men, not because she would love a girl any less. Anyway, I also don't think it is fair that my daughter would have his mom's name as a middle name when her and I don't have a close relationship, and also it isn't fair to my mom, who I have an extremely close relationship to. My husband's response to this is that he doesn't think it is fair that the first name that I'm choosing is a nickname my grandma went by. I don't like my grandma's actual name, but I love the nickname she was called, which is essentially just the first 3 letters of her name. This has been an ongoing argument, which he eventually said fine, you choose both names, because he said he didn't want to keep arguing about it, but yet it came up again this weekend. I have already had things made with her name, and when a friend of his asked what name we chose, I said the full name, and my husband just had a meltdown about how she's not going to have anything of his, which she will have his last name. I want to meet in the middle, but at the same time, even if it's not his mom's full name and a short version of it as the middle name, I still feel annoyed that I have to name my daughter by someone who essentially wanted a boy. So am I the asshole for wanting to ignore my husband and keep the names I already chose? Stories number 31. Neighbor snowed me in, so I iced him out. My neighbor owns a landscaping company. We're in Canada, so this means in the winter he is a snow removal company. He has snow blowers, snow plows, and even an employee he makes do all his shoveling. He has for years been harassing me and we've had our disputes, but this year he started using his snow plow to push all the snow from his lot into the front of my drive. It is very clearly on purpose. I told my landlord, but him being the spineless twat he is, he said it's my job as a tenant to remove it, even though he's friends with this AH. So, since fair is fair, and we're moving water between the properties, I took myself 2 big buckets of water and dumped them along his freshly cleared front pathway. Within 2 hours it was ice. He stopped putting his snow in front of my drive. Good call, man. I was ready to get out my hose. Stories number 32. My life drastically improved when I started interrupting men. I'm a deep aficionado of cult documentaries. I've seen all the major ones: Mother God, Wild Wild Country, Teal Swan, Keep Sweet, Escape from Twin Flames, etc. But there was something about that Duggar documentary. Something too close to home about it. I mean, there was no real abuse in my Christian upbringing. I was free enough to voice my opinion. We were an intellectual, debate-friendly house. No one ever told me to sit with my legs crossed or keep quiet or be a good listener. I just happened to notice how much easier and more peaceful my surroundings were when I didn't contribute to the chaos by throwing a new opinion in the mix. Especially when it came to elderly family members who were shorter on patience and more prone to irritability. I was gangbusters with my grand folks if I stuck to validating them. As a lover of peace, this strategy brought me through many family visits. In my own way, soul validation was a power move, ensuring that there wouldn't be a fight. And I'm not here to dunk on my poor grandparents, God rest their souls. Lord knows my own brain is solidifying as we speak, but you can't keep the same strategies in your late 30s that you had when you were 10. And before I continue, I need to drop a disclaimer: interrupting people is incredibly rude, and listening intently is polite and loving, along with a wellspring of other benefits, like creating connection, trust, and sharing information. I will never stop valuing the power of listening, and I'm not on a journey to become a verbal bulldozer. But there are people out there who exploit the listeners, knowingly or unknowingly. The fast talkers, the spewers, the verbal processors, the ones who have never been told to stop. The ones who make it hard to stop. The ones who lose track of how long they are speaking versus listening. Usually, they're not trying to be rude, but we're not doing them any favors by being polite about it. Sometimes we have to drop a hard interruption bomb. It feels really uncomfortable for women. It feels more uncomfortable than just letting yourself get steamrolled, which is easy, and allows you to retreat into a warm cave where you're liked because you're not challenging the person in front of you. Before we move from doormat to taking up space, we have to remember why we chose to get steamrolled, and the discomfort it will require to force yourself into the space of someone who is not used to sharing it. We have to be real about this. You can't take up space without being disliked by a few people, especially if you are a woman. But the good news is, in addition to harnessing your power, you'll also get some die-hard fans along the way. Without further ado, here are some non-hostile, but assertive, ways to interrupt. I'm gonna jump in here and suggest, hey, you've been talking a lot. Let's take 30 seconds to finish your thought, and then I need to contribute. Pause. I need a breather, and then I need to contribute. Hey, it's time to ask me a question about what I think. Hey, has a thought and I want to hear what she thinks. None of these are questions. If you politely request a speed talker to stop, they'll apologize, but then they'll keep going. Speed talkers aren't playing by the rules of politeness. The ones who want you in your life will make an effort to change, although this has nothing to do with them. Point 1. Interrupting men was like removing a firmly lodged rock in the mountain of my anxieties. It burned a hole through the intellectual obstacles I was putting between myself and my happiness. Because interrupting men means that it doesn't matter how they view me. Yes, child, call me a bitch or shrill or hard to work with or a social justice warrior and scoff while you desperately search for a younger female friend who will sacrifice her holy headspace to fill it with your endless, unfiltered crap. We're changing the world, boo. We're gardening community and building coalitions and raising children and making art and working 10-hour days and calling our senators. And trying to occasionally have fun. You should try it. You should be alone with your thoughts sometimes. You should earn your space in the room by listening to others. Stories number 33. Aita for planning to be angry at a surprise MLM that I'm being guilt-tripped to going. My wife has been guilt-tripped by our neighbor to go to something called cooking show, and I had no idea what this was, but after research I learned it basically a demonstration to sell us super expensive cookware, and what I mean expensive I don't mean like $100 stuff, I mean like $1,000 cheese grater, pots and pans in the upwards of $10,000, on the prospect that it supposedly help reduce autism and diabetes or something. I like these neighbors, but I felt betrayed on why they would invite us to this. I have asked others and it's basically being stuck hearing this for possibly 3+ hours. I work hard on my weekdays and doing this on Saturday makes me pissed. And I know, I don't have to go, but my wife is pressured to go as she wants to be polite, so I gotta go because my wife is telling me to. So I told her I'm gonna be shoe grumpy going into this, and she told me that's unreasonable. Stories number 34. Aita for telling the guy I date that leaving cat poop in his cat's fur for 2 days is disgusting. I, 29F, have been dating this dude, 31M, for about half a year. He has 2 very furry cats who loves to cuddle in the bed and in the sofa with us. One is very shy and timid, whereas the other one is a little goofball. This story involves the shy little lady. So I slept at his place from Saturday to Sunday this weekend and woke up in the middle of the night by feeling the shy cat snuggle up at the top of my head. Ah, nice, I thought to myself, since she usually is a little bit afraid of me. But then I smelled the distinctive smell of cat poop. I thought it was coming from the litter box and thought nothing of it and fell back to sleep. The following morning we noticed that it was cat poop on his bag, which made me check the cats to see if there was anything stuck on any of them, and I saw a bit of poop roughly the size of a penny stuck in the shy cat's fur. I pointed that out to him while feeling absolutely disgusted that the cat might have cuddled up in my hair with poop in her fur. He said that he would try to get it out, but that it would probably be hard since she usually struggle when you're trying to groom her. I told him to just get a scissor and snip it away before she could react, but he insisted that it would be very hard and he didn't want to scare her. I was like, okay, he will probably fix it when I've left and she feels less scared, and left it at that. Today, 2 days later, I asked him how it went and he told me he hadn't gotten rid of it all yet because it's easier to get it out when it's dry. Now, you might think the cat is so shy that you can't even touch her without her running away. She's not. I've petted her multiple times and she is 100% comfortable with him, so I can't see how he hasn't just cut it off already. It might be worth to mention that I have an unreasonable fear of germs and bacteria, so I freaked the fuck out. I told him it was disgusting and that I probably won't visit him for a while, since the chance of it being cat poop literally everywhere by now is big. He says that I'm overreacting and it isn't such a big deal, but I proceed to tell him that it's a major red flag for me and that I think it's messed up to let the whole apartment get smears of cat poop everywhere. So, AITA for possibly overreacting to him not cleaning up his shy cat's poop after 2 days.